I supported my wife through her depression. Then I learned she told everyone I was the one destroying our marriage. Posted by you/blindsided husband to r/true off my chest. I am sitting in a hotel room with 2 suitcases, a box of legal documents, and a bottle of cheap whiskey. 3 days ago, I thought I was the most supportive husband on the planet. I thought I was a saint for standing by my wife Elena, through 2 years of debilitating depression that saw her quit her job, gain weight, and retreat into our bedroom for days at a time. I cooked every meal. I paid every bill. I managed her therapy appointments. I defended her to my frustrated family. I lost friends because I couldn't leave her side. I thought we were fighting a battle against mental illness together. I was wrong. I was fighting alone, and she was in the rearguard, shooting me in the back. The realization didn't come in a shout or a scream. It came in a quiet notification on an iPad she left unlocked on the kitchen counter, a window into a parallel universe where I am not the caretaker, but the jailer. And the worst part isn't the lie itself. It is the realization that the people I loved and trusted have been comforting her for surviving me, while I was killing myself to keep her alive. To understand the magnitude of this betrayal, you have to understand what my life has looked like for the past 24 months. Elena and I have been married for 5 years. The first 3 were typical. We were happy. We traveled. We both had decent jobs in marketing. Then, her mother passed away. It was tragic, and I expected grief. I expected a hard year. I did not expect a total collapse of her personality. She quit her job a month after the funeral without telling me. I came home to find her on the couch, staring at the ceiling. She said she couldn't handle the pressure anymore. I understood. I told her to take the time she needed. I picked up extra shifts and freelance consulting work to cover her lost income. I didn't mind. That is what marriage is. You carry the load when the other person stumbles. But she didn't just stumble. She stopped walking entirely. The dynamic shifted slowly. First, it was the chores. She was too tired to do laundry. Then she was too anxious to go grocery shopping. Then she couldn't handle the noise of the vacuum cleaner. Within 6 months, I was doing 100% of the domestic labor while working 60 hours a week. I would wake up at 5 a.m., prep her breakfast and lunch, go to work, come home, cook dinner, clean the kitchen, do a load of laundry, and then spend 2 hours listening to her talk about how empty she felt. I urged her to get therapy. She refused for a long time, saying no one could understand her pain. Finally, she agreed, but only if I found the therapist, booked the appointments, and drove her there. I did it. I sat in the waiting room for an hour every Tuesday and Thursday, typing on my laptop, trying to catch up on work. The isolation was the next phase. She stopped wanting to see friends. She said they were too happy, and it hurt her. Then she stopped wanting me to see friends. She said she felt unsafe when I wasn't home. So I stopped going out. I stopped playing basketball on weekends. I stopped going to happy hours. My world shrank to the size of our apartment and my office cubicle. I was exhausted. I was burnt out. But I kept telling myself, she is sick. This isn't her. The real Elena is in there somewhere, and I have to keep the lights on until she comes back. 3 days ago, I came home early from work because I had a migraine. The house was quiet. Elena was usually in the bedroom with the blackout curtains drawn, but she wasn't there. I walked into the kitchen and saw her iPad propped up on the counter. She must have been making tea and forgotten it. She was in the shower. I could hear the water running. The screen lit up with a notification. It was a message from a group chat on an app one didn't recognize. The preview text read, "Stay strong, babe. Did he let you eat today? Let me know if you need me to call the police." My stomach dropped. Who was sending my wife messages about eating? I cook her 3 meals a day. I often bring them to her in bed on a tray. I know I shouldn't have snooped. I know privacy is sacred. But the wording was too bizarre, too alarming. I swiped the screen. The passcode was her birthday. It unlocked. I opened the app. It was a private messaging platform, encrypted. The group chat was titled The Survivors. There were 6 women in the group. And as I scrolled back, my entire reality disintegrated. Elena had been documenting a life of abuse that never happened. She told them I forced her to quit her job because I didn't want her to have financial independence. She told them I controlled the grocery shopping because I was restricting her calories to make her lose weight. She told them the reason I drove her to therapy was to ensure she didn't speak to anyone else or try to escape. She told them I isolated her from her friends because I was a narcissist who wanted her all to myself. I sat on a kitchen stool, reading months of logs. It was detailed. It was calculated. He threw out my dinner again because I didn't fold the laundry right, she wrote on a day I vividly remembered. That night, I had made her favorite risotto. She had taken one bite, said she wasn't hungry, and I had wrapped it up in Tupperware for her lunch the next day. He's screaming at me in the other room. I'm shaking, she wrote on a Tuesday evening when I had been fast asleep on the couch, exhausted from a 12-hour shift. It wasn't just complaints. It was a narrative of terror. She had painted me as a monster. And the women in the chat were feeding it. They were sending her resources for domestic violence shelters. They were validating her trauma. Then I saw the financial aspect. I'm trying to save up for a lawyer, but he checks every receipt, she typed. Sent you $50, honey. Hide it well, one user replied. Just Venmo'd you $100. Get yourself some food he doesn't know about, another said. She was receiving money. Hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars over the last year. I checked her bank app on the iPad. She had a secret account with nearly $15,000 in it. I looked at our joint account. We were barely scraping by. I haven't bought new clothes in 2 years. I drive a car with a cracked windshield because we couldn't afford the repair. I have been drowning in debt to pay for her recovery, while she has been crowdfunding her exit strategy by selling a fiction of my cruelty. I heard the shower turn off. I put the iPad back exactly where it was. I walked out of the kitchen, went into the guest room, and laid down. My migraine was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp clarity. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I was in shock. I played the role. I asked her how her shower was. She looked at me with those big sad eyes, the eyes I had fallen in love with, the eyes I had pitted for 2 years, and said, I'm just so tired, Mark. My body feels so heavy. I know, honey, I said. Why don't you rest? I'll make dinner. I went to the kitchen and made pasta. I watched her eat it. I watched her scroll on her phone, probably updating the survivors that I was forcing her to eat carbs to make her fat, or that I had poisoned the sauce. I am not a violent man. I am not a yeller. I am a solver. I solve problems at work. I tried to solve her depression. Now, I have to solve my marriage. Yesterday, I took a sick day. I told her I was going to work, but I went to a lawyer. I showed him the screenshots I had taken with my phone of her iPad screen. I showed him our bank statements. I showed him the credit card debt I accrued paying for her holistic treatments and specialized therapy. The lawyer, a grim-faced man named Mr. Henderson, looked at me over his glasses. This is character assassination, he said. And it is financial fraud depending on how you look at it. But mostly, it is a setup for a very contentious divorce. If she files first and claims abuse, you are going to be fighting an uphill battle to stay in your house. He told me to leave. He told me to secure my documents, separate my finances immediately, and get out of the blast zone before I detonated the bomb. So here I am. I told her this morning that I had a last-minute business trip for a client in Chicago. It was the first time I've left her alone overnight in 2 years. She panicked. She cried. She said she couldn't handle the house alone. She asked who would make sure she took her meds. You're strong, Elena, I said. You can do it. I packed my bags. I took my birth certificate, my passport, the title to my car, and my grandmother's ring from the safe. I drove to this hotel. I have spent the last 6 hours going through my social media. I realized why friends have ghosted me. I realized why my cousin stopped inviting us to barbecues. She hasn't just told strangers on the internet. She has been seeding this narrative in our real lives too. I found a Facebook post from her sister, restricted so I couldn't see it, but visible through a mutual friend's account I still had access to. It was a picture of Elena looking gaunt. She has actually gained weight, but the angle was deceptive. The caption read, "My warrior sister. Fighting a silent battle against a toxic environment. We will get you out soon. I am the toxic environment. I am shaking with rage. I am shaking with grief. I feel like the last 5 years of my life have been a hallucination. Was she ever depressed? Or was it all a performance? Was the grief real, and she just found that victimhood paid better than healing? I don't know what happens next. Mr. Henderson is drafting the filing. He advised me to go gray rock, to become uninteresting and unresponsive to her emotional manipulation. He said I need to record everything from this point forward, legal in my state. I am terrified of what she will do when she realizes I know. If she is capable of inventing abuse to strangers, what will she do when the abuser actually leaves? Will she hurt herself? Will she burn the house down? Will she call the police and claim I hit her? I have blocked her on everything except text, which I have archived. I have unlinked my bank accounts. I have canceled the credit cards she has access to. My phone just buzzed. It is a text from Elena. Where are you? I'm scared. I heard a noise outside. I need you to come home. Please, Mark. If you loved me, you wouldn't leave me like this. 3 days ago, I would have turned the car around. I would have driven 90 miles an hour to hold her hand. Tonight, I am pouring another glass of whiskey. I am not going home. Update 1. The narrative war begins. It has been 1 week since I checked into the hotel. The silence has been broken, and the noise is deafening. I didn't reply to her text that first night. I turned my phone off and tried to sleep, but I mostly just stared at the ceiling, replaying every interaction of the last 2 years. Every time she winced when I touched her shoulder. Every time she apologized for being a burden, looking for me to reassure her. It all feels so sinister now. The next morning, I authorized Mr. Henderson to serve her the papers. We hired a process server. I didn't want to do it myself. I knew if I saw her, I might falter, or worse, I might lose my temper and give her exactly the ammunition she needed. The server caught her at home around 11 a.m. I know this because my phone blew up at 11:05 a.m. 17 missed calls in 3 minutes. A barrage of texts. What is this? Is this a joke? You can't do this to me. I'm sick. You're abandoning a disabled woman. Everyone will know what you are. That last one chilled me. She wasn't pleading for the marriage. She was threatening my reputation. She immediately went to the weapon she had been sharpening for years. I stuck to the script Mr. Henderson gave me. I sent one text back, "Please direct all communication to my attorney, Mr. Henderson. His contact info is in the packet. I will not be discussing this personally." Then the flying monkeys arrived. The first was her sister, Chloe. Chloe and I used to be close. I helped her move into her first apartment. I thought we were family. She called me, and against my better judgment, I answered, thinking maybe she would listen to reason. "You are a sick piece of trash," she hissed before I could say hello. "Serving divorce papers to a woman who can barely get out of bed? Do you have any soul left?" "Chloe, you don't know the truth," I said calmly. "I know enough," she snapped. "I know how you control her money. I know how you keep her isolated. And now that she's finally getting strong enough to leave, you try to discard her? We are coming for everything, Mark. You won't have a dime left." "She has $15,000 in a secret account, Chloe," I said. "Ask her about the Survivors Fund." There was a pause on the line. A beat of silence. Then, "You're a liar. She doesn't have a penny. You give her an allowance like a child." "Ask her," I repeated, and hung up. The next few days were a blur of digital warfare. I realized I had to get ahead of this locally. I called my parents. They were confused. They thought Elena was just having a hard time. When I told them about the group chat, the lies, and the money, my mother cried. My father, a man of few words, just said, "Come home, son." But I couldn't go to their house. I knew Elena would look for me there. I stayed at the hotel. On day 4, I received an email from my HR department. Someone had sent an anonymous complaint alleging that I was using company resources, my work laptop, to harass a woman and that I had a history of domestic instability that made me a risk. I went into the office immediately. I sat down with the HR director, a woman I've known for 6 years. I laid it all out. I showed her the divorce filing. I showed her the screenshots of Elena's fabricated claims. I told her, I am being targeted by a smear campaign during a divorce. HR is never your friend, but they are risk-averse. She looked at the evidence. She saw that the harassment claim had zero proof attached to it. She told me to keep my personal life off company devices, which I always have, and said they would close the ticket, but she warned me that if the drama spilled into the workplace again, it would be a problem. That was a close call. Elena was trying to destroy my livelihood. If I lost my job, I couldn't pay the lawyer, and she would win. Then, I got a notification from our home security system. I still had access to the cameras on my phone. She hadn't thought to change the Wi-Fi password or reset the hub. I watched a live feed of her living room. Chloe was there. And two other women I didn't recognize, likely from her support group. They were drinking wine. Elena was not in bed. She was not wearing her depression pajamas. She was wearing jeans and a nice top. She was laughing. She was walking around the living room, gesturing wildly. I turned up the volume on the feed. He thinks he can just leave? I have texts where he sounds annoyed. I can spin that, Elena was saying. We can say he was financially abusive, one of the unknown women said. That's hard to disprove. He controlled the accounts, right? Yeah, but he cut me off, Elena said. I need to move the money from the stash before the lawyers find it. Transfer it to crypto, Chloe suggested. Or give it to me in cash. I'll hold it. I hit the record button on my phone screen capture. I recorded 20 minutes of them plotting to hide assets and fabricate evidence of emotional abuse. I sent the video file to Mr. Henderson immediately. He called me 10 minutes later. I have never heard a lawyer sound giddy. This is the smoking gun, he said. In our state, conspiring to hide marital assets is a serious offense. And the collusion to fabricate abuse? This destroys her credibility. Do not let her know you have this. We wait for the deposition. I felt a weight lift off my chest, but it was replaced by a different kind of heaviness. I was watching the woman I vowed to protect plotting my destruction with a glass of Pinot Grigio in her hand. There was no sadness in her eyes. There was only malice. I realized then that the depression might have been real at the start, after her mother died. But at some point, it morphed into a tool. She found that being the broken bird got her unlimited love, service, and lack of responsibility. And when I started to burn out, she needed a villain to explain why she wasn't getting better. I became the villain because I was the only other person in the room. I am moving into a short-term apartment tomorrow. The hotel is too expensive. I have blocked Chloe. I have told my friends the truth, simply without drama. I sent a few key people the screenshots of her lies. Some didn't believe me. They said I was victim blaming. I cut them off. I don't have the energy to convince people who want to believe the soap opera. But a few friends, the ones I pushed away, have come back. My best friend from college, Dave, drove 2 hours to sit with me in the hotel room last night. We ordered pizza. He didn't ask questions. He just let me talk. I feel like I'm crazy, I told him. Did I imagine the last 2 years? No, Dave said. You didn't imagine it. You survived it. Now you just have to survive the exit. The war isn't over. I know she will escalate when she realizes the money trick won't work. But now I have the camera footage. I have the truth. Update 2, the extinction burst. It has been 3 weeks since I left. The term extinction burst comes from behavioral psychology. It refers to a sudden spike in the frequency or intensity of a behavior when the reinforcement for that behavior is removed. When you stop feeding the monster, it doesn't just die quietly. It screams. It thrashes. It tries to burn the village down. I am currently living in the charred remains of the village. After I moved into my apartment, Mr. Henderson filed a motion for an emergency freeze on our assets, citing the video evidence of her planning to hide funds. The judge granted it immediately. This meant Elena's secret account was frozen, along with our joint accounts. She was cut off. The reaction was nuclear. She couldn't reach me, so she went public. She made a public post on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. It was a video of her, weeping, no makeup, hair messy. A perfect performance. I didn't want to do this, she sobbed into the camera. But my husband, Mark, has abandoned me without a penny. He has locked me out of our accounts. I have no food. I am afraid of what he will do next. He is a powerful manipulator. Please, I just need help to feel safe. The video went viral in our local community. I woke up to hundreds of hate messages. People telling me to rot in hell. People threatening to come to my job. It was terrifying. For a moment, I panicked. I wanted to post the security footage. I wanted to scream, "Look! She is lying." Mr. Henderson stopped me. "Do not engage in the mudslinging," he ordered. "The court hates social media wars. Let her dig her grave. We will present the facts to the judge." But the court date was 2 weeks away. I had to live in this hell until then. Then, things took a darker turn. I was leaving my office building on a Tuesday. I walked to my car in the parking garage. I saw scratches all over the driver's side door. The word abuser was keyed into the paint. I stared at it. My hands shook. This wasn't just online anymore. I called the police and filed a report. There were cameras in the garage, but the quality was grainy. You could see a figure in a hoodie, but you couldn't identify them. I knew it wasn't Elena. She rarely leaves the house. It was likely one of her knights, someone who believed her story and wanted to be a hero. I had to switch cars with my dad for a week. I started parking 2 blocks away. The next day, my boss called me in. The anonymous complaints were flooding the company's social media pages. "Why do you employ a wife beater?" Comments were on every post. My boss was sympathetic but firm. "Mark, this is damaging the brand. We need this to stop." "I can't control her," I said, desperate. "I have a court date. The truth will come out." "I'm placing you on paid administrative leave until the court date," he said. "I'm sorry. We just need the heat to die down." I walked out of the office carrying a box of my things, feeling like I had lost everything. I had lost my home, my reputation, and now my career was hanging by a thread. I sat in my dad's car and screamed until my throat bled. I went back to my apartment and sat in the dark. I almost called her. I almost surrendered. I thought, if I just go back, if I just apologize, the pain stops. I can go back to being the slave. It's better than being the pariah. Then I looked at the video file on my laptop again. I watched her laughing with Chloe. I watched her callous planning. "He's such a pushover," she had said in the video. "He'll come back if I cry hard enough." That sentence saved me. It turned my despair into cold, hard steel. I didn't call her. Instead, I spent the next week preparing for court with the intensity of a forensic accountant. I printed every text. I transcribed the video. I organized the timeline. The hearing was yesterday. It was for temporary spousal support and the asset freeze. I walked into the courtroom. Elena was there. She looked frail. She was using a cane. She has never used a cane in her life. She was wearing an oversized sweater that made her look tiny. Chloe was holding her arm. When she saw me, she flinched theatrically, hiding her face in Chloe's shoulder. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, watched the performance with an unreadable expression. Elena's lawyer started. He painted a picture of a helpless, invalid woman discarded by a cruel, high-earning husband. He demanded $4,000 a month in emergency support and exclusive use of the marital home. Then it was Mr. Henderson's turn. He didn't make a speech. He just submitted Exhibit A, the survivors' chat logs. Exhibit B, the bank statements showing the secret fund. Exhibit C, the security camera footage of the planning session. The judge watched the video on her monitor. The courtroom was silent. I watched Elena. She wasn't looking at the judge. She was looking at me. For the first time, the mask slipped. There was no sadness. There was pure, unadulterated hatred. The judge paused the video. She looked at Elena. She looked at Elena's lawyer, who was shuffling his papers, clearly blindsided by the existence of the tape. "Mrs. Davis," the judge said, "can you explain why you are discussing hiding assets and fabricating abuse allegations in this video?" Elena stammered. I was just venting. I was scared. He made me say those things." "He made you say things to your sister while he was not in the house?" the judge asked. "He's mind control. He's manipulative," Elena whispered, but the steam was gone. The narrative had punctured. The judge ruled immediately. The asset freeze remained in place. Spousal support was denied pending a full trial. Elena was ordered to vacate the marital home within 30 days so it could be sold, as neither of us could afford it alone. A restraining order was issued, mutual. We were not to contact each other. It was a total victory on paper. Walking out of the courthouse, Chloe tried to rush me. "You think you won?" she screamed. "You destroyed her." Mr. Henderson stepped between us. "Step back, or you will be arrested for harassment." Chloe spat on the ground and dragged Elena away. Elena didn't look back. I went to a diner afterwards and ordered a burger. It was the first meal I had tasted in a month. My phone buzzed. It was an email from my boss. Mr. Henderson had sent a summary of the court ruling to the company's legal counsel. "Mark, we reviewed the judge's findings. Your leave is lifted. We will issue a statement if necessary supporting our employees' right to due process. See you Monday." I cried into my fries. But the real twist came last night. I was lying in bed, finally feeling safe, when I got a DM on Instagram. It was from one of the women in the survivors group chat. Her username was FreedomFighter88. "Hey Mark. I don't know if you'll see this, but Elena just posted in the group that the judge was bribed and that you hit her in the parking lot after court. I saw the news report. There was no altercation." I started looking back at her stories. Nothing adds up. I think I've been helping her hurt you. I'm sorry. If you need the chat logs from before you had access, I have them. I downloaded everything before she deleted the group an hour ago. She deleted the group. She is trying to erase the evidence. But FreedomFighter88 sent me a Dropbox link. I opened it. It goes back 3 years. Even before her mother died. I found a message from 3 years ago. "My mom is sick, and it sucks, but honestly, I can use this. If I play the grief card right, I can probably quit my job and get Mark to do everything. I'm so sick of working." It wasn't grief. It wasn't depression. It was a plan. She had planned to become a dependent. She had planned the collapse. I sat there until sunrise, reading the autobiography of a sociopath who had methodically dismantled my life because she was sick of working. I am not sad anymore. I am not even angry. I am simply done. I have forwarded the new logs to Mr. Henderson. We are amending the divorce filing. We aren't just going for separation. We are suing for fraud. Update 3, The Siege. It has been 2 months since the court hearing. I wish I could say things have settled down, but a dying star burns brightest before it collapses. Elena was evicted from the house last week. She refused to leave voluntarily. The sheriff had to come. She live-streamed the eviction, screaming that I was making a disabled woman homeless. It got some views, but the narrative has shifted. The local community has heard the rumors about the court evidence. The comment section wasn't entirely on her side this time. There were a lot of "why doesn't she have a job?" And I heard she lied about abuse comments. She is living with Chloe now. The lawsuit for fraud is moving forward. It's aggressive, I know. Most people just want to divorce and move on. But after reading those logs, reading how she planned to exploit her mother's death to enslave me, I need justice. I need it on public record that this was a con. The survivors group has imploded. The woman who contacted me, whose real name is Sarah, reached out to the other members. Once the doubt set in, the dominoes fell. It turns out Elena had borrowed money from all of them. Loans for lawyers that never existed. Emergency funds for hotels she never stayed in. These women are furious. They are victims too. They poured their empathy and their limited funds into a black hole. 3 of them have agreed to provide affidavits for my case. Elena didn't just isolate me, she weaponized the kindness of strangers. But the siege isn't about legalities anymore. It's about family. My mother-in-law's sister, Aunt June, called me. She was the matriarch of Elena's family. A tough, no-nonsense woman. She had been cold to me since the separation, believing Elena's lies. "Mark," she said. Her voice was shaky. I went to help Chloe and Elena unpack boxes at Chloe's apartment. I found a box of Mom's jewelry. Elena's mother had left a significant jewelry collection. It was supposed to be split between Elena and Chloe. Elena had told everyone that I had sold her share of the jewelry to pay for my gambling debts, another lie she invented. It was all there, Mark. The sapphire ring. The pearls. She told us you pawned them, June said. I asked her about it. She looked me in the eye and said I must have stolen them back from the pawn shop. She lies about everything, June, I said. I know that now, June whispered. I'm so sorry. We blamed you. We treated you like a criminal. It's okay, I said, though it wasn't. It's not okay, June said. She is sick. But not the way she says. She is evil. The family turned. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't everyone. Chloe is still a true believer, or maybe she's just too complicit now to back down. But the cousins, the aunts, they stopped commenting on her posts. They stopped sending money. The silence from her side is more dangerous than the noise. Last Tuesday, I came out to my car. I have my own car back now, repainted. There was an envelope on the windshield. No stamp. Hand-delivered. Inside was a single sheet of notebook paper. I know where you sleep. You can't hide from me. You owe me a life. I took it to the police. They added it to the file. They said it's hard to prove she put it there, but it helps the case for a permanent restraining order. I sleep with a chair wedged under my apartment door handle. I checked the fire extinguisher. I bought a dashboard camera for my car that records 24/7. I am not living in fear, exactly. I am living in tactical awareness. I have started therapy for myself. My therapist, Dr. Eris, says I have caretaker PTSD. She says I was conditioned to suppress my own needs so thoroughly that I lost touch with reality. We are working on boundaries. We are working on forgiving myself for not seeing the signs. The hardest part is the memories. I look back at photos of us from 3 years ago. She looks so happy. Was she acting then? Was the woman I married a fiction? Dr. Eris asked me, does it matter if it was real then? The betrayal is real now. She's right. The fraud case has a deposition scheduled for next week. I will have to sit in a room across from her. I will have to watch her answer questions under oath. I am ready. Final update, the deposition and the end. The deposition was yesterday. It was the finale. We met in the conference room of a neutral law firm. Mr. Henderson was on my right. Elena was across from me, flanked by her lawyer, a guy who looked like he regretted taking the case. Elena looked different. The frail victim costume was gone. She was wearing a sharp blazer. Her makeup was immaculate. She looked like the corporate marketing manager she used to be. She had dropped the act because she knew the audience in this room, didn't buy it anymore. The videographer started the recording. Mr. Henderson began the questioning. He was methodical. He walked her through the timeline. Did you quit your job on October 14th, 2021? Yes. Did you tell your husband? No. Why? I was traumatized. Did you write in a chat log on August 3, 2021, 2 months prior, that you were, quote, planning your exit from the workforce? Elena stared at the paper he slid across the table. I don't recall. Read the document, please. She read it. Her jaw tightened. Yes, I wrote that. So the resignation was planned? It was not a sudden trauma response. It was complicated. Mr. Henderson moved to the abuse allegations. You claimed on social media that Mark starved you. Yet we have credit card statements showing Mark spent an average of $800 a month on groceries and takeout, specifically from your favorite restaurants. Who ate that food, Mrs. Davis? I don't know. Did you eat it? Sometimes. Did Mark ever physically prevent you from eating? Silence. Her lawyer nudged her. No, she said softly. Louder for the record, please. No, she snapped. But emotional starvation is real. We are discussing physical starvation, which you alleged in your fundraising campaign. Did you lie to donors to solicit funds? I felt starved, she screamed. He didn't love me the way I needed. That is starvation. So you metaphorically starved, but literally took $15,000 from strangers who thought you were malnourished? Objection, her lawyer yelled. I'll rephrase, Mr. Henderson said calmly. It went on for 4 hours. By the end, she was unraveling. Not crying, raging. She called me a robot. She called me a sociopath. She admitted to the bank account. She admitted to the chat logs. She justified it all by saying she was owed the support because she gave me the best years of her life. When it was over, her lawyer asked for a recess. He took Mr. Henderson into the hallway. They came back 10 minutes later. "They want to settle," Mr. Henderson whispered to me. "The lawyer knows she perjured herself 5 times. He knows if we go to trial for fraud, she could face criminal charges. They are offering a clean break. The terms: divorce granted immediately. No spousal support. Ever. She keeps the $15,000 in her secret account. It's all she has left anyway. I keep my retirement, my savings, and the proceeds from the house sale, after paying off the debts she caused. She signs a strictly enforced non-disclosure agreement. She cannot mention my name, my employer, or the marriage on social media ever again. If she does, she owes me $50,000 per infraction. She issues a public retraction of the abuse claims. I looked at the paper. I looked at her. She was staring at the table, her hands clenched in fists. I could have pushed for the fraud trial. I could have tried to put her in jail. But that would mean another year of this. Another year of depositions, courts, and thinking about her. I wanted my life back more than I wanted revenge. "I'll sign," I said. We signed the papers right there. As I stood up to leave, Elena looked at me one last time. "You'll be miserable without me," she said. "You need someone to take care of. You're nothing without a project." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she was a stranger. "Elena," I said, "I wasn't taking care of you because I needed a project. I did it because I loved you. The fact that you can't tell the difference is why you're alone." I walked out. Epilogue. 6 months later. The house sold. I paid off the credit card debt. I have a modest apartment in a new part of the city. The retraction she posted was brief and legalistic, but it did the job. I retract my previous statements regarding Mark Davis. They were made under emotional distress and were factually inaccurate. It wasn't an apology, but it cleared my name. My company welcomed me back fully. My friends, the real ones, are closer than ever. I heard from Aunt June that Elena moved to a different state with Chloe. They are trying to start a lifestyle blog. Good luck to them. I am dating again. Just casually. I met a woman named Anna. On our second date, she mentioned she had a bad day and was tired. My instinct, my caretaker PTSD kicked in. I wanted to offer to pay her bills, clean her house, fix her life. I stopped myself. I took a breath. "That sucks," I said. "I hope you get some rest." And I let her handle her own bad day. It felt wrong. It felt selfish. But then she smiled and said, "Thanks. I'll be fine tomorrow." And she was. I am learning that love isn't about carrying someone else's backpack. It's about walking next to them while they carry their own. I supported my wife through her depression. It turns out, I was supporting her performance. The show is over. The reviews are in. And I am finally leaving the theater. End of saga. The gavel didn't bang. It wasn't like the movies. The judge just set down her pen, looked over her spectacles, and delivered the judgment in a monotone voice that sounded like thunder to my brother's ears. That silence, the 3 seconds of absolute suffocating silence immediately following the ruling, was worth every single penny of the legal fees. It was worth the year of biting my tongue until it bled. It was worth the sleepless nights and the family screaming matches. I looked at my brother, Tyler. The golden child. The man who had sailed through life on a raft made of our parents' praise and other people's money. For the first time in 30 years, the charm wasn't working. His jaw was slack. His fiancée, sitting 2 rows back, was white as a sheet. My mother was sobbing into a tissue, not for me, the victim, but for him. It was over. I had nuked his life. And I didn't feel a shred of guilt. To understand why I let it go this far, why I didn't just stop him the moment I found out, you have to understand the family dynamic. It is a cliché, but clichés exist for a reason. Tyler was the firstborn. He was athletic, charismatic, and handsome in that effortless way that makes people want to hand him things. I was the second son. Quiet, studious, independent. That was the word my parents used. Independent. It was code for we don't need to worry about him, so we won't. Tyler was always finding himself. He found himself in a Europe trip he couldn't afford. He found himself in 3 different colleges, none of which he graduated from. He found himself in a series of business ideas that required seed capital from our parents' retirement fund. I, on the other hand, found myself in engineering school. I worked nights. I paid my tuition. I graduated with honors, got a boring job at a structural firm, and started saving. I drove a 10-year-old Honda. Tyler leased a BMW he couldn't make payments on, and when the repo man came, Dad wrote a check. This was the rhythm of our lives. Tyler messed up, the family rallied. Tyler learned nothing. I succeeded, the family nodded, I was ignored. The incident that started this war happened 18 months ago. I was finally ready to buy a house. I had scraped together a 20% down payment for a modest place in the suburbs. I found a realtor, found a property, and sat down with a mortgage broker to get pre-approved. The broker, a nice guy named Steve, clicked away at his keyboard while making small talk about interest rates. Then he stopped. The clicking stopped. He squinted at the screen, typed something else, and frowned. "Is there a problem?" I asked. "Mr. Davis, are you aware of the outstanding lien on your file? And the utilization ratio is incredibly high." "That's impossible," I said. "I have one credit card with a $500 limit I use for gas. I have zero debt." Steve turned the monitor around. There were 5 credit cards. A personal loan for $20,000. A financing plan for a jet ski. Yes, a jet ski. The total outstanding debt under my Social Security number was $85,000. The payments had been made sporadically for 2 years, just enough to keep it out of collections, until 3 months ago. Then everything stopped. The accounts were all delinquent. My credit score, which I had nurtured like a bonsai tree, was in the mid-400s. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at the addresses on the accounts. They were all linked to an apartment complex in the city. My brother's apartment complex. I drove home in a fog. My first instinct was to storm over to Tyler's place and punch him. My second instinct was to call the police. But then the third instinct, the one honed by 30 years of living in the Davis household, kicked in. If I went to the police, my parents would intervene. They would cry. They would say Tyler made a mistake. They would say he was going through a hard time. They would beg me to drop the charges to save his future. They would promise to pay me back, but they wouldn't, because they were already bled dry by him. If I confronted Tyler, he would gaslight me. He would say he intended to ask me, or that it was a misunderstanding, or that he'd pay it off next week when his big deal came through. He would squirm out of it. He always squirmed out of it. I needed to be methodical. I needed to be cold. I went home and pulled my full 3-bureau credit report. I spent the weekend building a spreadsheet. I matched the dates of the credit inquiries to significant events in Tyler's life. The $5,000 charge on the Amex? That was the week he went to Miami with his friends. The $20,000 personal loan? That coincided with the time he bought his consulting firm a new website and office furniture, despite having 0 clients. The jet ski? Summer of last year. I remembered him posting photos on it. He captioned it "Grind hard, play hard." He wasn't grinding. He was stealing my identity. He had my Social Security number because our parents had a safe with all our documents. He must have snapped a photo of my card during a visit. He knew I rarely checked my credit because I didn't use it. He knew I was saving cash. He used my independence against me. On Monday morning, I did not call my brother. I called a lawyer. Not a family friend. A shark. A specialist in civil litigation and fraud. I sat in his office and laid it out. "I want to sue him," I said. "I don't want to go to the police yet because the DA might not pick it up without a police report, and if I file a police report, my parents will declare war on me. I want to sue him civilly for fraud, conversion, and emotional distress. I want a judgment on public record." The lawyer, a man named Mr. Henderson, looked at the stack of evidence. "You know this will destroy your relationship with your family." "That relationship is already destroyed," I said. "They just don't know it yet." The plan was simple. I had to dispute the debt with the credit agencies to create a paper trail of denial. Then, we would file the lawsuit. But we needed to time it. Tyler had recently gotten engaged to Sophie. Sophie came from old money. Her family was big on reputation. Tyler was playing the part of the successful entrepreneur to win them over. He was driving a leased Rover, probably in Mom's name, and wearing watches bought with my credit. If I blew this up now, the parents would spin it. If I waited until he was deep in the wedding planning, until his assets, if he had any, were exposed, I could maximize the damage. I decided to play the long game. For 3 months, I attended family dinners. I sat across from Tyler. I watched him eat steak paid for by my credit score. "Business is booming," Tyler said one night, swirling a glass of red wine. "We're thinking of scaling up. Sophie's dad is introducing me to some investors." "That's great, Tyler," I said, cutting my chicken. "You must be very proud." "It's all about hustle," he said, pointing a fork at me. "You know, you should take some risks, little brother. You're too safe. Structural engineering? Snooze fest. You gotta leverage your assets." "I'll keep that in mind," I said. My mother beamed. "I'm just so glad both my boys are doing well." "Tyler, did you show him the venue for the wedding?" "Oh yeah. The country club. Top tier. We put the deposit down last week." I knew that deposit. I had seen the alert on the credit monitoring app one now had installed on my phone. He put a $4,000 deposit on a Chase Sapphire card opened in my name 3 weeks ago. He was paying for his wedding to a rich girl using his brother's stolen identity. The audacity was so sharp it almost felt like admiration. I continued to document everything. I recorded conversations, legal in my state, one-party consent. I baited him into admitting he made purchases. "Hey Tyler," I asked casually during a football game. "That watch is nice. Tag Heuer." "Yeah, treated myself," he said. "When did you get it?" "Oh, back in July. Had a good quarter." I noted the date. July. There was a $2,500 charge at a jeweler in July on the Discover card. The breaking point of my patience came in November. I received a collection call at work. They had tracked down my office number. "Mr. Davis, this is regarding the debt of $12,000. I handled it professionally, giving them my lawyer's info, but the shame of having my receptionist transfer a collection call was unbearable. It was time. We filed the suit 2 weeks before Christmas. I didn't tell them. I let the process server handle it. We served him at his office, which was actually a co-working space where he rented a single desk. We also served him at his apartment, just to be sure. The phone call came 4 hours later. "What is this?" Tyler screamed. He didn't say hello. "What the hell is this, OP?" "It's a lawsuit, Tyler," I said calmly. I was sitting in my living room, a cup of tea in hand. My heart was racing, but my voice was steady. "You sued me? Are you insane? Why didn't you just call me? You stole $85,000 from me." "I didn't steal it. I borrowed it. I was going to pay you back. I was leverage trading to build the portfolio. You opened cards in my name without my consent. That is fraud. That is theft." "I'm your brother," he shouted. "You don't sue your brother. Mom and Dad are going to kill you." "Tell them," I said. "Tell them exactly what you did." I hung up. 10 minutes later, my mother called. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father. Voicemail. Then Tyler again. Voicemail. I sent a group text to the family chat. "I have filed a civil suit against Tyler for identity theft and financial fraud involving over $80,000 in unauthorized debt. All communication regarding this matter must go through my attorney, Mr. Henderson. I will not be discussing this personally." Then I blocked them for the night. The next morning, the siege began. My mother showed up at my door. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Open this door," she demanded. I opened it, but I didn't let her in. "Mom, if you're here to talk about the lawsuit, I can't." "How could you?" she hissed. "He is getting married in 6 months. Sophie's family will see this. It's public record. He should have thought about that before he bought a jet ski with my social security number. He needed that for networking, she said. The absurdity of the statement actually made me laugh. Networking? On a jet ski. He made a mistake, she pleaded, changing tactics. He's desperate. He wanted to look good. You know how much pressure he feels. You're the successful one, you have the steady job. He just wanted to catch up. So he robbed me. He didn't rob you. He used your credit. We can fix this. Dad and I will take out a second mortgage. We'll pay it off. Just drop the suit. No, I said. Why? She screamed. Why are you doing this to us? I'm not doing it to us. I'm doing it to him. And you're enabling him. If you pay it off, he learns nothing. He'll do it again. Maybe to you. Maybe to Sophie. If you ruin this wedding, she said, her voice turning cold, I will never forgive you. If you choose him over the son he robbed, I replied, I don't want your forgiveness. I closed the door. The months leading up to the court date were a masterclass in manipulation. Tyler tried everything. First, the intimidation. He sent me texts saying he would countersue for defamation. Good luck with that. Then the bargaining. He offered to sign a promissory note to pay me back $200 a month. At that rate, he'd be debt-free in 40 years, ignoring interest. Then, the love bombing. He sent me a photo of us as kids. Remember when I beat up that bully for you? We're brothers, man. I forwarded every text to Mr. Henderson. Admission of guilt, Henderson would say, chuckling. Keep them coming. The most critical part was Sophie. I hadn't told her. I assumed Tyler was lying to her. About 2 months before the trial, I got a call from an unknown number. Is this OP? Yes. This is Sophie. Her voice was shaky. Hi, Sophie. I found a letter. From a lawyer. Tyler said it's a misunderstanding. He said you're jealous of his success and you're trying to extort him. He said you have a gambling problem and he tried to help you, and now you're twisting it. I closed my eyes. The lie was so bold I had to respect it. Sophie, I said carefully, I am going to give you the contact information for the clerk of the court. The filing is public record. Go down to the courthouse, pull the file, and look at the exhibits attached to the complaint. Look at the bank statements. Look at the signatures. That is all I will say. Okay, she whispered. I never heard back from her. But I knew she went. The court date arrived on a Tuesday. Tyler showed up in a suit that I knew cost $1,200 because I was currently paying interest on it. He had a lawyer, a frenzied-looking guy who clearly specialized in strip mall DUIs, not complex financial fraud. My parents were there. They sat behind Tyler. They didn't look at me. The trial was a bench trial, meaning no jury, just the judge. Judge Mercer. She was a stern woman with a reputation for hating time wasters. Tyler's defense was a train wreck. His lawyer tried to argue that there was an implied verbal contract between brothers that I allowed him to use the funds as an investment. Judge Mercer looked at me. Did you authorize these transactions? No, Your Honor. Did you receive any investment returns from the defendant? No, Your Honor. I wasn't even aware of the accounts until I applied for a mortgage. Then came the cross-examination of Tyler. My lawyer, Henderson, was surgical. Mr. Davis, Henderson asked, holding up a piece of paper. This is a credit application for a Discover card. Is that your signature? No, Tyler said. That looks like my brother's signature. Interesting. Because we have an affidavit from a handwriting expert stating it is a forgery, and the IP address used to submit the online application traces back to your home Wi-Fi. Can you explain that? Tyler stuttered. Well, he used my Wi-Fi. You stated earlier you hadn't seen your brother in 6 months prior to this date. Which is it? Tyler turned red. I don't recall. Let's talk about the expenditures, Henderson continued. You spent $4,000 at Gentleman's Paradise, a bespoke suit shop. Was this for an investment? You have to look the part to get clients, Tyler said arrogantly. And the jet ski? Client entertainment. And the engagement ring? Silence. The courtroom went dead silent. Did you purchase your fiancé's engagement ring with a credit card opened in your brother's name? Tyler looked at his lawyer. The lawyer looked at the table. I intended to pay it off before the bill came. Yes or no, Mr. Davis? Yes. I heard a gasp from the back of the room. I turned. Sophie had slipped in. She was standing near the door. She heard it. The judge had heard enough. The evidence presented by the plaintiff is overwhelming, Judge Mercer said. The defense's argument of an implied contract is not only unsupported by evidence but frankly insulting to the court's intelligence. It is clear that the defendant systematically used the plaintiff's identity to fund a lifestyle he could not afford. She looked at Tyler. Mr. Davis, you have committed fraud. You have abused the trust of a family member in the most egregious way. I am finding in favor of the plaintiff for the full amount of $85,000, plus legal fees, plus punitive damages for the intentional nature of the act. Total judgment, $112,000. The gavel didn't bang, as I said. She just set the pen down. Tyler sat there, stunned. The reality of a six-figure judgment hit him. This wasn't a debt he could ignore. This was a court order. His wages would be garnished. His assets could be seized. His credit, his actual credit, was now marked with a judgment. I stood up. I packed my briefcase. My father walked up to me. His face was purple. Are you happy? He spat. You ruined him. He ruined himself, Dad. I just handed him the bill. Don't come to Christmas, my mother said, weeping. Don't ever come home. I wasn't planning on it, I said. I walked out of the courtroom. In the hallway, I saw Tyler trying to talk to Sophie. Babe, listen, it's a legal thing, it's complicated, I can appeal. Sophie looked at him. She wasn't crying. She looked like she was looking at a stranger. She took the ring off, the ring I technically paid for, and pressed it into his hand. It's not complicated, Tyler. You're a liar. And you're a thief. She walked away. The sound of her heels clicking on the marble floor was the best music I had ever heard. The aftermath. It has been 6 months since the judgment. I was able to use the court judgment to clear my credit report. The bureaus removed the fraudulent accounts, and my score is recovering. I bought the house. It's quiet. It's mine. Tyler filed for bankruptcy. It was the only way to get out from under the judgment, but because the debt stemmed from fraud, which my lawyer successfully argued, the bankruptcy court almost didn't discharge it. He eventually had to settle with the bankruptcy trustee by selling almost everything he owned. The car is gone. The watch is gone. The jet ski is gone. Sophie left him for good. Last I heard, she's dating a dermatologist. My parents still don't talk to me. They send me guilt trip emails occasionally, telling me how Tyler is depressed, how he's living in a studio apartment, how he's working as a sales rep for a solar panel company and struggling. They tell me I should forgive him. They tell me family is everything. But I know the truth. Family isn't about blood. It's about respect. And for the first time in my life, I respected myself enough to burn the bridge while I was standing on it, just to watch them fall. I sleep like a baby. I never thought I would be the person writing one of these. You always read them and think that the signs were obvious, or that the person must have been incredibly naive to let it happen. I used to think the same thing. I pride myself on being logical, careful with my decisions, and generally skeptical of things that sound too good to be true. But when the predator is sitting at your dinner table, pouring wine for your mother and laughing at your father's bad jokes, your guard does not just lower. It disappears completely. Betrayal does not come from your enemies. It comes from the people you hand the keys to your life to, assuming they will protect you. My name is David. I am 32 years old, and until recently, I thought my biggest problem was figuring out whether to renovate my kitchen or just sell my apartment as is. I work in logistics, a job that requires attention to detail and a lot of planning, so I am not someone who usually lets things slip through the cracks. My sister, Sarah, is 3 years younger than me. She has always been the bright spark of the family. She is charismatic, beautiful, and the kind of person who draws energy from everyone around her. We were close growing up, the kind of close where we fought over the remote but would defend each other to the death on the playground. 3 years ago, Sarah married Mark. Mark was everything our parents wanted for her. He was tall, well-spoken, and projected an aura of absolute competence. He worked in wealth management for a boutique firm downtown. He wore tailored suits, drove a leased Audi that he insisted was a strategic business expense, and spoke about the market with the confidence of a man who controlled the tides. My parents loved him. I liked him well enough. He seemed good for Sarah. He grounded her. She could be a bit flighty with money and plans, and Mark was the steady hand on the tiller. Or so we all thought. The trouble started 18 months ago. Our grandmother passed away. It was a difficult time for the family emotionally, but she left behind a significant estate. After the house was sold and the assets were divided, Sarah and I each inherited roughly $250,000. For me, this was life-changing money. It was not retire on a yacht money, but it was enough to secure my future, pay off my mortgage, and maybe start a small business I had been dreaming of. The week the checks cleared, Mark invited me over for dinner. It was a Tuesday. I remember that clearly because Mark usually worked late on Tuesdays, but he made a point to be there. Sarah made a roast. We drank a bottle of wine that Mark said was worth $200. The atmosphere was celebratory but serious. After dessert, Mark cleared the table and brought out his laptop. He did not push. That was his genius. He did not sell me anything. He just started talking about tax implications. He explained capital gains, tax brackets, and the erosion of wealth through inflation. He showed me graphs and charts on his screen, pointing out how leaving that money in a standard savings account was essentially setting it on fire. He was right, of course. I knew the basics of finance, but Mark made it sound like a complex war zone that only a professional could navigate. He talked about his firm's exclusive family office tier, usually reserved for clients with over $5 million in assets, but he said he could pull strings to get me in because, well, we were family. I hesitated at first. I had a standard brokerage account where I bought index funds, and that felt safe enough. But Mark laughed, a gentle brotherly laugh, and told me that index funds were for people who wanted to stay middle class. He talked about derivatives, leveraged positions, and private equity access. He used words like alpha and yield maximization. Sarah sat there, nodding along, looking at him with absolute adoration. She told me Mark had already doubled her portion of the inheritance in just 3 months. That was the hook. Greed is a powerful thing, but sibling rivalry is stronger. The idea that Sarah, who had never saved a dime in her life, was suddenly outperforming me financially was unbearable. I asked for details. Mark sent me a prospectus the next day. It looked professional. It had his firm's logo, disclaimers, and impressive historical returns. I did what I thought was due diligence. I looked up his firm. It was real. I looked up Mark's license. He was registered. Everything checked out. I transferred the money. All of it. $250,000 wired to an account that Mark managed. The first 6 months were a dream. Mark gave me access to a client portal. I could log in on my phone and see my dashboard. Every month, the line went up. While the S&P 500 was flat, my portfolio was up 4%. Then 6%. I would go over to their house for barbecues, and Mark would clap me on the shoulder and whisper about a killer position he had just exited for me. I felt smart. I felt taken care of. I started treating them to dinners. I bought my niece expensive gifts. I was the cool, successful uncle. I remember one specific Thanksgiving. The whole family was there. My dad made a toast to Mark for steering the ship for all of us. Apparently, my parents had given him a chunk of their retirement savings to manage as well. Mark sat at the head of the table, carving the turkey, beaming with false humility. He talked about how the market was volatile, but he had hedged our exposure. I looked at him and felt a surge of gratitude. I trusted this man with my life. The cracks did not appear all at once. They started as hairline fractures that you only see if you are looking for them. It started with a car. My sedan finally gave up the ghost, the transmission blowing out on the highway. I decided it was time to upgrade. I wanted to buy a new truck, something reliable. I logged into the portal and saw my balance was sitting at nearly $300,000. I felt rich. I called Mark and told him I needed to withdraw $40,000 for the truck. There was a pause on the phone. A silence that lasted just a second too long. Mark told me that was great news about the truck, but he advised against withdrawing right now. He said the money was tied up in a fixed-term liquidity pool. He used a lot of jargon. He said pulling it out now would trigger a penalty and we would lose the accumulated interest from the last quarter. He suggested I finance the truck instead. He said with interest rates where they were, my money was earning more in the market than the loan would cost me. It made sense mathematically. I listened to him. I took out a loan for the truck. 3 months later, I decided I wanted to buy a house. I found a fixer-upper in a great neighborhood. It was perfect. I needed the cash for the down payment and the renovations. This time, I was not asking for advice. I was telling him I needed the money. I called him on a Monday morning. Mark was in a meeting, Sarah told me. He would call me back. He didn't. I called again Tuesday. He sent me a text saying things were crazy at the firm because of a market correction in Asia, but we would talk soon. Wednesday, I drove to his house. Sarah answered the door. She looked tired. When I asked for Mark, she got defensive. She asked why I was hounding him. She said he was under a lot of stress managing everyone's assets, and I was being selfish by demanding his attention instantly. I felt guilty. I apologized. But I insisted I needed to talk to him about the withdrawal. Mark came home an hour later. He looked exhausted. He poured himself a drink before he even took off his coat. We sat in his living room. I told him about the house. I told him I needed $100,000 liquid by the end of the month for closing. Mark sighed. He rubbed his temples. He told me the market was in a very delicate position. He said that my funds were currently leveraged in a complex arbitrage strategy. If we liquidated now, we would realize a loss. He showed me the portal on his iPad. The number was there, $320,000. It looked real. But he said it was unrealized gains. I pushed back. I said I didn't care about maximizing the profit anymore. I just needed the cash. Mark's demeanor changed. He became cold. He told me I was being emotional and irrational. He said I didn't understand how high finance worked. He said, "David, do you want to make money or do you want to lose it? Trust me. Give me 60 days to unwind the position without taking a haircut." I compromised. I gave him the 60 days. I lost the house. The seller wouldn't wait. I was crushed, but I told myself it was for the best. I trusted Mark. The 60 days came and went. I called him. He didn't answer. I went to the house. They weren't home. I called Sarah. She sent me to voicemail. That was the moment the cold water hit me. It wasn't a logical deduction. It was a physical sensation in my gut. Something was wrong. I went home and opened my laptop. I logged into the portal. The numbers were still there. Green arrows. Steady growth. I started looking at the URL. It was a subdomain of his firm's website. Or at least, it looked like it. I dug deeper. I inspected the page source. I am not a coder, but I know enough to look at HTML. The data on the page wasn't pulling from a live database. It was static. The numbers were hard-coded into the website. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt like I was going to throw up. I took screenshots of everything. Then I called the main line of the investment firm Mark worked for. I didn't ask for Mark. I asked for the compliance department. I spoke to a woman named Linda. I tried to keep my voice steady. I told her I was a client of Mark's and I was having trouble verifying some transaction history on the portal. I gave her my account number from the statement Mark sent me. There was a long silence on the line. The sound of typing. Linda came back on the line and asked me to repeat the number. I did. She told me that account number did not exist in their system. I felt the room spin. I asked her if I was a client at all. She asked for my social security number. I gave it to her. She searched. "Sir," she said, her voice careful, "we have no record of an account in your name. Mark is an employee here, yes, but he is a junior analyst. He is not authorized to manage client assets directly." I hung up the phone. I sat in my chair for 4 hours. I didn't move. The sun went down and the room got dark. I thought about the dinners. The wine. The way he looked my father in the eye. It wasn't just my money. It was my parents' retirement. It was Sarah's inheritance. He had stolen everything. The rage came next. It was a blinding white-hot heat. I wanted to drive over there and break down his door. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call the police. But I stopped myself. If I called the police now, Mark would clam up. He would lawyer up. The money would be gone. If he had spent it, or hidden it, a lawsuit would just be a piece of paper telling me I was right while I went bankrupt. I needed to know where the money was. I needed to know if there was anything left to salvage. I needed to be smarter than him. Mark thought I was a simple logistics manager. He thought I was the plodding, risk-averse brother-in-law who did what he was told. He relied on my passivity. I decided to play the role he wrote for me. I called Sarah the next day. I forced my voice to sound cheerful. I told her I was sorry for being pushy about the house. I told her I realized Mark was right and I was grateful he stopped me from making a bad financial decision. I heard the relief in her voice. She invited me over for dinner that weekend to smooth things over. I went. I brought a bottle of expensive scotch. I hugged Mark. I looked him in the eye and thanked him for his patience. I watched him relax. His shoulders dropped. The arrogance returned. He poured the scotch and started talking about a new opportunity in emerging markets. I listened. I nodded. And then I set the trap. "Mark," I said, leaning in, "I actually wanted to talk to you because my situation has changed. You know I've been consulting on the side for that supply chain firm." I hadn't been. It was a lie. "Well," I continued, "they're being bought out. My equity stake is vesting. I'm looking at a payout of about $600,000 next month." Mark's eyes literally widened. I saw the greed flash across his face like a neon sign. He licked his lips. "That's incredible, Dave," he said. "Congratulations." "The thing is," I said, "I don't want to put this in a bank. I want you to manage it. But I want to do it right this time. I want to bundle it with the existing funds and maybe set up a trust structure like you talked about for Mom and Dad." Mark was practically salivating. "Absolutely. We can set up an LLC. Minimize the tax burden. I can have the paperwork ready by Monday." "There is one catch," I said. "The payout is coming from a corporate escrow account. Their legal team is incredibly anal. They need to verify the liquidity of my current assets before they release the vesting funds. It's some anti-money laundering compliance thing. They need to see a live audit of my current holdings with you." Mark stiffened. "I can print you a statement," he said quickly. "That's the problem," I said, acting frustrated. "They won't accept a PDF. They said those are too easy to forge. They need independent verification. They want to send an auditor to your office to just view the terminal. It's ridiculous, I know. I told them your family, but these corporate lawyers are nightmares." Mark laughed nervously. "Dave, we can't just let random auditors into the firm. We have security protocols. Client confidentiality." I know, I said. "I told them that. So they proposed a compromise. They said we can do a remote verification. They have a secure viewing portal. Basically, you just log into my account on your screen while screen sharing with their compliance officer, click through the transaction history so they can verify the timestamps, and that's it. 5 minutes. Once they see the funds are real and liquid, they wire the $600,000 to your management account." I watched him calculate. He was trapped. If he refused, he lost the imaginary $600,000. If he agreed, he had to show a screen that didn't exist. But I knew Mark. He was arrogant. He thought he could outsmart anyone. I knew he would try to fake the screen share. He would build a fake environment or modify the HTML locally to make it look real during the call. "Okay," Mark said slowly. "I can do that. For you." "Great," I said. "Let's do it Tuesday evening. I'll come over here, we can get on the call with the guy, get it done, and then celebrate." I left his house feeling dirty, but focused. The auditor was not an auditor. It was my friend Sam. Sam works in cybersecurity. He's the kind of guy who finds vulnerabilities in bank software for a living. I explained the situation to him. Sam didn't ask questions. He just cracked his knuckles and said, "Let's catch a thief." Sam built a custom link. He told me it was a session logger. He explained that when Mark clicked the link to join the screen share, the script would not just share the screen. It would capture the background processes. It would log every keystroke. It would record the network traffic. Tuesday night came. I went to Mark's house. I was sweating, but I played it cool. Mark had his laptop set up on the dining room table. He looked confident. Too confident. "I'm ready," he said. "I pulled up your account on the back end." I knew what he had done. He had created a local HTML file on his computer that looked exactly like the banking portal. He had edited the code to show the numbers he wanted. It was a classic fake-out. On a normal screen share, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. "Awesome," I said. "Here's the link the auditor sent." I forwarded him the link Sam had made. Mark clicked it. The screen share started. On the screen, a chat window opened. Auditor_01, Sam typed. "Connection established. Please proceed to the dashboard." Mark smiled at me and clicked his bookmark. The fake dashboard loaded. It showed my balance, $342,000. Auditor_01 typed, "Please click on the Holdings tab." Mark clicked. The fake holdings appeared. Auditor_01 typed, "Please refresh the page to verify real-time connection." This was the test. If it was a local file, a refresh would either reload the local file or, if Mark wasn't careful, try to ping the real server and error out. Mark hesitated. "The system is a bit slow tonight," he said to me. He hit refresh. The page reloaded instantly. He had prepared for this. He was running a local server on his laptop to serve the fake pages. He was smarter than I thought. Auditor_01 typed, "Verification complete. However, we need to verify the source of the funds for the last deposit. Please open the transaction details for the deposit dated October 12th. Mark clicked it. The details popped up. Auditor_01 typed, "Thank you. Transfer initiated." Mark grinned. He thought he had one. He closed the laptop. "See? Easy." "Yeah," I said. "Easy." I pulled out my phone. "Sam, did you get it?" Mark looked at me, confused. "Who is Sam?" I looked at Mark. The mask dropped. I didn't look like the friendly brother-in-law anymore. I looked like a man who had been robbed. "Sam is the guy who just recorded your entire session," I said. "And because you clicked that link, we didn't just see your screen. We saw your file paths. We saw that you were loading c:/users/mark/desktop/fake_portal/index HTML single quote instead of the bank's URL." Mark's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "I know, Mark," I said. "I called Linda at the firm. I know I don't have an account. I know you're running a Ponzi scheme on your own family." Mark stood up. "You're crazy. Linda doesn't know what she's talking about. She's just a receptionist." "Sit down," I said. My voice wasn't loud, but it was hard. "I have the logs. I have the source code of the fake page you just showed me. I have the recording of you claiming these funds exist when the firm says they don't." Sarah walked into the room. She was holding a tray of appetizers. She froze. "What's going on?" "Mark has something to tell you," I said. "Tell her, Mark. Tell her where Mom and Dad's money is." Mark looked at Sarah. He looked at me. He crumbled. It wasn't a dignified collapse. He literally slumped into the chair and put his head in his hands. He started crying. Not tears of remorse, but tears of a child who got caught. "I lost it," he whispered. "All of it." Sarah dropped the tray. The sound of shattering ceramic echoed through the house. "I was trying to fix it," Mark sobbed. "I started trading options. I thought I could beat the market. I lost the first 50 grand, and I panicked. I tried to double down to make it back before anyone noticed. It just kept going down. I used your money to pay off the dividends for your parents so they wouldn't suspect. It's gone. It's all gone." Sarah screamed. It was a primal sound. She rushed at him and started hitting him. I had to pull her off. She was hysterical. "Where did it go?" I shouted at him. "You can't lose $500,000 without paper trails. It's in margin calls." Mark yelled back. "I owe the broker. I have nothing. I sat them both down. The next hour was the ugliest hour of my life. I interrogated him. I made him log into his actual personal brokerage accounts. I stood over his shoulder. The balance was negative. He wasn't just broke, he was in debt. He had gambled our inheritance on high-risk options plays, convinced he was a genius, and the market had eaten him alive. He had been using new money coming in, my money, to pay the returns to my parents, keeping them happy while the principal evaporated. Here is what is going to happen, I said. I was trembling, but I had to be the general now. You are going to sell this house. You are going to sell the cars. You are going to cash out your 401k. You are going to liquidate everything you own. I can't, Mark whimpered. The house is in Sarah's name too. I don't care, I said. You will draft a confession. You will sign a promissory note for every cent you stole. And if you deviate from this plan by even 1 inch, I take the recording of this fraud to your boss, to the police, and to every client in this city. You will go to prison, Mark. Do you understand? Federal prison for wire fraud. Mark nodded, snot running down his face. The aftermath was a slow, painful grind. We didn't call the police. My parents begged us not to. The shame would have killed my father. He trusted Mark. He had bragged about Mark. To find out he had been swindled by his own son-in-law would have destroyed his spirit. So we handled it internally. Mark and Sarah sold the house. They sold the Audi. Mark was fired from his firm anyway because his performance was abysmal, but they never found out about the fraud. They moved into a small apartment. The proceeds from the house sale and the cars covered about 60% of what was stolen. I made sure my parents were paid back first. They got most of their retirement back. I took the hit. I got back about $40,000 of my $250. Sarah divorced him 6 months later. She couldn't look at him without seeing the lie. She moved back in with our parents for a while. She's doing better now, but she has trust issues that will probably last a lifetime. Mark moved away. He sends me a check for $500 every month. It's part of our legally binding agreement. At this rate, he will pay me back in about 30 years. I don't cash the checks for the money. I cash them to remind him that I am still watching. I didn't get my kitchen renovation. I didn't get the business. I drive a used truck that I bought with a loan. But I learned a lesson that was more expensive than any degree. Trust, but verify. And never, ever mix family with money. Sometimes I look at the spreadsheet where I track his payments. It's the only honest financial document Mark ever gave me. The row goes down, slowly, agonizingly slowly. It's a reminder of the genius who thought he could outsmart the market, and the brother-in-law who finally outsmarted him. I still have the recording of that night. The audit. Sometimes, when I'm feeling angry, I listen to it. I listen to the confidence in his voice as he lies to a fake auditor. It reminds me that confidence is not competence, and that the people who smile the brightest at your success might be the ones secretly praying for your failure so they can pick your pockets. My parents still don't know the full extent of the trick. They just think Mark made bad investments and we forced him to liquidate to cover it. They don't know about the fake website or the intentional theft. We kept that from them to preserve their hearts. But Sarah knows. I know. And Mark knows. Every Christmas, when the family gathers, Mark is obviously not there. The chair is empty. The silence is loud. But at least the food on the table is paid for with honest money. And when I check my bank account now, the number is smaller, but it's real. And that's worth more than any fake fortune on a screen. The betrayal changed me. I am harder now. I check receipts. I read the fine print. I don't take people at their word. It's a lonely way to live sometimes, but it's safe. I ran into Mark once, about a year ago. He was working at a car dealership in the next town over. He saw me walking the lot. I was just browsing, not buying. He froze. He looked older. The shine was gone. The tailored suit was replaced by a cheap polo shirt with the dealership logo. He started to walk toward me, maybe to apologize, maybe to make small talk. I just looked at him. I didn't scowl. I didn't yell. I just looked at him with the same flat expression I had during the audit. He stopped. He turned around and walked back into the office. He knows. He knows that I am the one person he couldn't fool forever. And he knows that if he ever misses a payment, the next call isn't to a fake auditor. It's to the district attorney. That is my insurance policy. And unlike his investment fund, this one is guaranteed. I spent a lot of nights awake, wondering if I should have ruined him completely. If I should have sent him to jail. But then I look at my sister, who is slowly learning to smile again. I look at my parents, who are living their retirement in modest comfort, unaware of how close they came to destitution. And I think I made the right choice. Revenge is a dish best served cold, they say. But I found that revenge is best served with a repayment plan and a lifetime of leverage. Mark is my indentured servant now. He works for me. Every commission he makes selling a sedan, a piece of it belongs to me. There is a strange justice in that. The financial wizard who wanted to control our wealth is now working solely to restore it, dollar by dollar, until the day he dies or the debt is cleared. And me? I finally fixed up my kitchen. I did the work myself. I laid the tile. I installed the cabinets. It's not perfect. The grout lines are a little uneven in the corner. But I paid for the materials with cash. My cash. And when I stand in that kitchen and drink my coffee, it tastes better than any $200 wine Mark ever poured. Because it's real. I wanted to share this story not just to vent, but as a warning. The scammers aren't always strangers in call centers halfway across the world. Sometimes they are the people you hug at Thanksgiving. If someone offers you a return that beats the market with zero risk, run. If they use jargon to make you feel stupid, ask more questions. And if they ever tell you that you can't withdraw your own money, burn the bridge and find the truth. It might cost you a relationship, but it might save your life. I am David. I am the guy who got conned by his brother-in-law. But I am also the guy who caught him. And in the end, that is the title I am keeping. The specific details of the trick are something I am actually quite proud of. I didn't just need to catch him, I needed to corner him. The technical aspect of the fake auditor was crucial because it removed his ability to gaslight. You see, Mark's greatest weapon was his ability to talk his way out of things. If I had just confronted him with a discrepancy, he would have had an excuse. Oh, that's a reporting error. Oh, the clearinghouse is delayed. He had a glossary of excuses. But by forcing him to fake a live verification, I forced him to commit an active, undeniable act of fraud in front of a witness. He couldn't say it was a mistake. He couldn't say he didn't know. He physically typed the fake numbers. He loaded the fake file. That was the smoking gun. It proved intent. Intent is everything. Mistakenly losing money is incompetence. Creating a fake website to hide the loss is a felony. That distinction was the lever I used to force the settlement. Without that proof of intent, he could have fought me in civil court for years, claiming market volatility. With that proof, he had zero defense. It was a gamble. If he had been smarter, or if he had refused the audit, I would have been in a much harder position. But greed makes people blind. He wanted that imaginary $600,000 so badly that he walked right into the cage. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I hadn't lied about the extra money. How long would he have kept the charade going? Until my parents needed medical care? Until Sarah got pregnant and needed to buy a crib? He would have drained us until we were dry, and then he probably would have run. I stopped that timeline. I altered the future. It came at a high cost, but it could have been absolute ruin. The relationship with Sarah has been the hardest part to repair. She feels guilty. She feels like she brought the wolf into the sheepfold. I tell her it's not her fault. Mark was a predator who specialized in trust. He groomed her just like he groomed us. It took a long time for her to believe that. We don't talk about money anymore. We talk about movies, or politics, or our parents' health. But whenever the check arrives at a restaurant, there is a moment of hesitation. A split second where we both remember. I usually grab it. I got it, I say. And she lets me. It's a small price to pay for peace. So that's it. That's the whole ugly, messy truth. I am 32, single, and rebuilding my savings from scratch. But I am free of him. And in a way, I am free of the greed that got me into this mess in the first place. I don't care about alpha or yield anymore. I care about solvency. I care about honesty. And if anyone knows a good financial advisor, don't tell me. I think I'll stick to index funds from now on. Update 1, 6 months later. I didn't expect this post to blow up the way it did. I've read through the comments, thousands of them. Some of you called me a genius for the audit trap. Some of you called me an idiot for giving him the money in the first place. You're both right. I was an idiot, and then I had to become a genius to fix my idiocy. That's how life works sometimes. Since so many people asked for an update on the situation, specifically regarding the repayment and the family dynamic, I figured I would write this out. First, the money. Mark has been surprisingly consistent with the payments. I think the fear of God, or rather the fear of the district attorney, is still fresh in his mind. He hasn't missed a month. However, 2 months ago, I got a letter from a lawyer representing him. It was a request to renegotiate the terms of our agreement. They claimed undue hardship and wanted to lower the monthly payments to $200. I didn't even hire a lawyer to respond. I simply emailed Mark directly. I attached a snippet of the audio file from the night of the audit, just the part where he confirms the fake balance. The subject line was, "Hardship denied." The lawyer's request was withdrawn the next day. I felt a grim satisfaction in that. It confirmed that he is still terrified of the exposure. He knows that his career, his reputation, and his freedom hang by the thread of my patience. Second, Sarah. This has been the more complicated part. Healing a bank account is math. Healing a person is messy. Sarah started dating again recently. The guy seems nice. He's a landscape architect. He drives a beat-up van covered in dirt. He wears flannel. He has absolutely no interest in the stock market. I like him. But I watched Sarah introduce him to me. She was nervous. She was scanning my face, looking for approval, but also looking for suspicion. She's terrified that she's going to bring another monster home. We had a long talk about it over coffee. She told me that she feels like she can't trust her own judgment anymore. She said, "David, I lived with him for 3 years. I slept in the same bed. And I didn't know he was stealing from my parents. How can I ever trust myself again?" I didn't have a perfect answer. I just told her that Mark was a professional liar. It wasn't that she was blind, it was that he was invisible. We're working on it. She's in therapy, which helps. I think she's going to be okay. My parents are, well, they are aging. The stress of the market loss, the cover story we gave them, took a toll on my dad. He's more fragile now. He worries about money constantly, counting pennies at the grocery store. It kills me to watch. I try to help where I can, buying groceries, paying for repairs around their house, but I can't replace the security they felt they had. That's the part of the theft that you can't calculate. You can't put a dollar value on peace of mind. Mark stole their sunset years. He turned their golden years into anxious years. For that, I will never forgive him. I've had a few people in the comments ask if I should have just reported him to the IRS or the SEC anyway. Believe me, I wrestled with that. But you have to understand the nuclear blast radius of that decision. If I reported him, the government would have frozen everything. The remaining assets, the house, the cars, would have been seized as evidence or used to pay fines. My parents would have gotten zero. I would have gotten zero. We would have had justice, but we would have been destitute. The private settlement allowed us to control the liquidation. We sold the house at peak market value. We sold the cars privately. We maximized the recovery. Was it the most ethical civic duty choice? Maybe not. But I chose my family's survival over punishing a criminal through the state. I sleep fine with that decision. I also wanted to address the technical questions about the trap. A few tech-savvy people asked how I knew he was running a local server. When Sam, my tech friend, set up the logger, we saw the incoming requests. When Mark's browser loaded the page, it didn't request data from https://www.google.com/search?markq=investfirm.com. It requested data from localhost 8080. That's computer speak for, this computer is talking to itself. It was such a sloppy mistake on his part, but it showed his arrogance. He didn't think I would have anyone looking at the traffic. He thought the screen share was just a video feed. He didn't understand that the verification link was a tunnel. It's a good reminder, even smart con artists make mistakes when they get comfortable. Life is moving on. I got a promotion at work, senior logistics manager. It comes with a raise. I'm putting that extra money into a high-yield savings account. Boring. Safe. FDIC insured. I look at the world differently now. When I see someone flashing a Rolex, I don't think success. I think leverage. When I see a couple on Instagram posting vacation photos while claiming to be entrepreneurs, I wonder what their balance sheet looks like. I've become cynical, yes. But I'm also harder to fool. Last week, a guy at a bar tried to pitch me on a crypto scheme. He used all the same buzzwords Mark used. Decentralized. Yield farming. To the moon. I let him talk for 5 minutes. Then I asked him one question. Can you show me the third-party audit of the liquidity pool? He stuttered. He made an excuse. He walked away. I smiled into my beer. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Well, that's not going to happen. Thanks for reading, everyone. Keep your eyes open. Watch your wallets. And if your brother-in-law offers to make you rich, tell him you're happy being poor. Update 2, the final twist. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. But life has a way of being stranger than fiction. 3 days ago, I got a phone call. It was a woman's voice. She sounded shaky. Is this David? She asked. Yes, I said. Who is this? My name is Jessica. I'm Mark's girlfriend. My stomach dropped. I hadn't thought about Mark dating. I assumed he was living in a hole somewhere. Okay, I said, guarding myself. Why are you calling me? I found a notebook, she said. He leaves it in his nightstand. I was looking for a pen and I opened it. It has your name in it. And a list of dates and amounts. She was talking about the repayment ledger. He told me he was paying off a student loan, she continued. But the amounts are so high. And he's always so angry when he writes the checks. I Googled your name. I found your sister's Facebook. I saw the pictures of the wedding. I realized you were family. She paused, taking a breath. Then I found this Reddit post. Someone shared it on a local community page, and the details, the Audi, the boutique firm. It sounded too familiar. I put the pieces together. I stayed silent. I didn't confirm or deny anything. I didn't know this woman. She could be working with him. He's doing it again, David, she whispered. I sat up straight. What do you mean? He's not working at the car dealership anymore, she said. He quit 2 months ago. He told me he got a job as a financial consultant for a senior living community. He helps the residents optimize their estates. A cold chill went down my spine. He's taking their money? I asked. I think so, she said. He brings home cash. Lots of it. He says it's consulting fees paid under the table to avoid taxes. But I saw a check on the dresser yesterday. It was from an 80-year-old woman. For $10,000. The memo line said, investment seed. I closed my eyes. He hadn't learned a thing. He wasn't paying me back with honest wages from selling cars. He was paying me back with new stolen money. He was running a new Ponzi scheme to pay off the victim of his old Ponzi scheme. I was inadvertently laundering his stolen funds. Jessica, I said, my voice shaking with rage. You need to get out of there. Now. I am, she said. I'm packing my bags. But I didn't know what to do about the rest. Send me a picture of the check, I said. And the name of the facility. She did. So here I am. Sitting at my desk. I have the picture of the check on my phone. I have the address of the retirement home. My private settlement was based on the idea that he would work an honest job to pay me back. If he is preying on the elderly to keep me quiet, the deal is off. I cannot be a beneficiary of his crimes against grandmothers. I picked up the phone 10 minutes ago. I didn't call Mark. I didn't call a fake auditor. I called the State Attorney General's office for elder abuse and fraud. I told them everything. I told them about my case. I told them about the new case. I told them I have recordings, logs, and a confession. I am meeting with an investigator tomorrow morning. This means the payments will stop. I will never see the rest of that money. My parents will never see the rest of theirs. And the quiet shame we tried to hide will become a public scandal. It will be on the news. Everyone will know. But I can't let him do this to them. I can't let my silence be purchased with the life savings of people like my parents. I am blowing the whistle. Mark is going to prison. For real this time. I just texted Sarah. It's over. I'm calling the authorities. She replied instantly. Do it. I'm scared of the fallout. I'm scared of the media. But mostly, I'm relieved. The secret is heavy. The truth is lighter, even if it burns. I will update one last time when the handcuffs go on. But for now, know this, the trick I used to catch him got my money back, but it didn't fix his soul. Some people are just broken. And you can't audit a conscience that doesn't exist. David, signing off. I cared for my grandfather alone while the family ignored him. After he passed, they all showed up for the inheritance, but he had one last surprise. I stood at the edge of the open grave and watched my mother dab a dry tissue to her perfectly made-up eyes. She made a sound that was somewhere between a sob and a hiccup, a performance so calculated it made my stomach turn. Next to her stood my Uncle Marcus, checking his watch every 30 seconds as if he had a board meeting to attend in the afterlife. On my other side was Aunt Sarah, clutching a Bible she had likely not opened since her wedding day, whispering loud platitudes about how God takes the best of us. They looked like a grieving family. To the outsider, to the pastor reading the eulogy, to the few old friends of my grandfather who had managed to make the trip, they looked devastated. They were dressed in expensive black wool and silk. They held hands. They leaned on each other for support. I stood 3 feet away from them, wearing a suit I bought at a thrift store 4 years ago because I had spent every last dime I had on generic prescription medications and adult diapers for the man inside the casket. I did not cry. I had no tears left. I had cried them all over the last 5 years in lonely hospital waiting rooms, in the quiet desperation of a kitchen at 3 a.m., and while scrubbing floors that would only get dirty again an hour later. My lack of tears seemed to offend them. I could feel their side-eye glances. They were judging my stoicism. They whispered that I was cold. They whispered that I was probably just waiting for the check. That was the irony that almost made me laugh out loud right there in the cemetery. They were the ones calculating the square footage of his estate before the dirt hit the lid. Yet I was the villain for not performing the grief they had suddenly discovered was necessary. But I knew something they did not. I knew about the meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning at the attorney's office. I knew what was in the leather binder sitting on the heavy oak desk of Mr. Henderson. And I knew that the performance my family was putting on today was going to be the most expensive acting job of their lives. To understand why I hated them, you have to understand the timeline. This did not happen overnight. It was a slow, rotting erosion of family bonds that I watched happen in real time. 5 years ago, Grandfather Arthur was a vibrant man. He was 78, lived in the house he had built with his own hands, and drove a vintage Ford Mustang that he loved more than most people love their children. He was the patriarch in the truest sense. Sunday dinners were mandatory. He paid for college tuitions. He bailed Uncle Marcus out of bad investments. He paid for Aunt Sarah's second and third weddings. He was the bank, the emotional anchor, and the safety net. Then came the stroke. It wasn't the massive kind that ends everything instantly. It was the cruel kind. The kind that takes your mobility on one side, slurs your speech just enough to make you self-conscious, and introduces a fog to your brain that never quite lifts. I was 24 at the time. I had just finished my degree in graphic design and was looking for junior positions in the city. I had a lease on a small apartment, a girlfriend named Jessica, and a plan for my life. When the news hit, the family convened at the hospital. It was a full house. Everyone was there, wringing their hands, harassing the nurses, demanding to see specialists. Uncle Marcus was shouting at administration about getting a private room. My mother was calling her friends to tell them the tragic news, positioning herself as the suffering daughter. I sat by his bed. He looked small. The man who used to lift me up onto his shoulders with one arm now looked like he would break if I touched him. He squeezed my hand with his good side. His eyes were terrified. He knew what was happening. He was a proud man, and he knew he was losing his autonomy. The discharge planning meeting was where the cracks appeared. The social worker, a tired woman named Mrs. Higgins, sat us all down in a conference room. She explained that Arthur could not live alone. He needed daily assistance with bathing, dressing, and medication management. He needed physical therapy 3 times a week. He needed someone to cook for him. He needs to go to a facility, Uncle Marcus said immediately. He didn't even look at the brochure. The best one. Top tier. He hates nursing homes, I said. My voice sounded quiet in the room of booming egos. He made us promise years ago. He said he wanted to die in his own house. That isn't practical, David, my mother snapped at me. Who is going to take care of him? I work full-time. Marcus runs a company. Sarah has her complications. I can't do it, Sarah added quickly. My back is bad. You know that. They went around the circle, listing their excuses. Careers, social lives, travel plans, ailments. They spoke about him as if he were a logistical problem to be solved, a line item on a spreadsheet that needed to be deleted. I thought about the time Grandpa paid for my braces because my dad, who split when I was 3, didn't pay child support. I thought about the time he taught me to drive in that Mustang, terrified but patient. I thought about the check he wrote for my college tuition so I wouldn't graduate with debt. I'll do it, I said. The room went silent. You. Marcus scoffed. You're a kid. You have no experience. I can learn, I said. I can move into the guest room. I can freelance from home. He stays in his house. The relief that washed over their faces was instant and sickening. They didn't care about my qualifications. They cared that the problem was solved. They cared that they wouldn't have to pay for a facility and they wouldn't have to get their hands dirty. Well, my mother said, smoothing her skirt. If you are sure. It will be good for you, David. Give you some responsibility. They walked out of that hospital feeling like heroes. They told everyone who would listen that we had decided to keep Arthur at home. They took the credit for the decision, and they handed me the keys to a prison cell that I would inhabit for the next 5 years. The first year wasn't terrible. It was an adjustment, but Grandpa was still mostly there. We fell into a routine. I helped him shower in the mornings, which was awkward at first but became just another chore. I cooked breakfast. I set up his workspace in the living room so he could watch his westerns while I worked on my laptop. But the isolation started early. My girlfriend, Jessica, lasted 3 months. She didn't say she was leaving because of him. She said we were growing apart. But I knew the truth. She hated that I couldn't go out on Friday nights. She hated that our dates were interrupted by me needing to check on his blood sugar. She hated the smell of the house, that faint medicinal scent of aging that you can never quite scrub away. When she broke up with me, I cried in the laundry room so Grandpa wouldn't hear. I didn't tell the family. They didn't ask about her anyway. The family visits were sporadic at best that first year. Mom would drop by on a Sunday for 20 minutes. She would sit on the edge of the sofa, refusing to take off her coat, and talk at him, not to him. She would tell him about her job, her friends, her vacations. She wouldn't ask how he was feeling. She wouldn't ask if he needed anything. Uncle Marcus came by twice. Both times he brought paperwork. He wanted Grandpa to sign over power of attorney. He wanted access to the investment accounts for safekeeping. Grandpa was physically weak, but his mind was still sharp enough to know a shark when he saw one. Not yet, Marcus, he would say. I'm not dead yet. Marcus would storm out, red-faced, and yell at me in the driveway. You need to talk sense into him, David. He's incompetent. If he mismanages the estate, there will be nothing left for anyone. It's his money, I would say. It's the family legacy, Marcus would correct me. I realized then that they didn't see him as a person. They saw him as a holding tank for their inheritance. They were just waiting for the vessel to break so they could collect the gold inside. Year 2 is when the dementia started to set in. It wasn't the forgetfulness of keys. It was the paranoia. The anger. He started waking up at 2 a.m. screaming that there were intruders in the house. I would have to run downstairs, adrenaline pumping, only to find him pointing a remote control at the curtains, convinced they were spies. I stopped sleeping through the night. I became a zombie. I lost my biggest freelance client because I missed a deadline after a night where he fell out of bed and I had to wait 4 hours for the paramedics to help me lift him because he wasn't injured, just stuck, and I wasn't strong enough to deadlift 200 pounds of dead weight. I called a family meeting. I told them I needed help. I needed respite care. I needed a weekend off. Just 2 days. We can't just drop everything, David, Aunt Sarah said over the speakerphone. I have my Pilates retreat this weekend. Mom? I asked. I have tickets to the theater, David. I've had them for months. You can't expect me to cancel my life. He's your father, I snapped. I haven't slept more than 3 hours in a row for 6 months. I am drowning here. You volunteered, Marcus chimed in. Nobody forced you. If it's too hard, maybe we should look at those facilities again. Of course, they are very expensive now. It would eat into the principal significantly. That was the threat. Every time I complained, they threatened the facility. Not because they cared about his care, but because they knew the facility would drain the inheritance. They were using my love for him against me. They knew I wouldn't let him go to a home, so they knew they could starve me of help and I would still stay. So I stayed. And I stopped asking. I learned to nap in 10-minute intervals. I learned how to change sheets with a person still in the bed. I learned how to distract him when he got into a loop about the war. I learned that arguing with dementia is like trying to hold back the tide with a spoon, useless and exhausting. The financial abuse was subtle at first, then blatant. The house needed repairs. The roof started leaking in the 3rd winter. I called Marcus. The roof will cost $8,000 to fix, I told him. Grandpa's liquid cash account is low because of the medication costs. Can the family chip in? Or can we access the trust? The trust is locked, Marcus said. And I'm a little liquid light right now. Just patch it. Don't let the contractors rip you off. I climbed up on the icy roof myself. I watched a YouTube video on how to apply tar patches. I slipped and nearly fell off the 2nd story. I patched the roof while freezing wind cut through my jacket. Marcus bought a new boat 2 weeks later. I saw the pictures on Facebook. The grocery budget got tighter. Grandpa needed specific foods, low sodium, soft textures, high protein. Ensure shakes are expensive. Incontinence pads are expensive. His pension covered the basics, but the medical copays were eating everything else. I stopped buying clothes. I canceled my streaming services. I ate ramen and peanut butter sandwiches so he could have the good roast beef and the fresh vegetables. One afternoon, Aunt Sarah stopped by. It was a surprise visit. She walked into the kitchen, wrinkled her nose, and opened the fridge. It smells like old soup in here, she announced. She looked at the generic brand bread on the counter. David, are you feeding him this garbage? He's used to better quality. Groceries cost money, Sarah, I said, not looking up from the sink where I was washing pill bottles. Well, you manage the household budget. You should budget better. She placed a Tupperware container on the table. I brought him some leftover lasagna. Don't let him eat it cold. She stayed for 10 minutes. She took a selfie with him where she kissed his forehead while he looked confused and frightened. She posted it to Instagram with the caption, "Spending quality time with Daddy. Love him so much. #FamilyFirst, #blessed." She left without asking if I needed anything. I ate the lasagna standing over the sink because I was so hungry I was shaking. It was cold. It was delicious. I hated her for it. The breaking point for my patience came in the 4th year. It was Christmas. For months, Grandpa had been talking about Christmas. In his mind, he was back in the 1980s. He kept asking if we had the tree up. He kept asking if Marcus was bringing the kids. He kept asking if Sarah was making her pecan pie. I decorated the house. I put up the lights by myself. I dragged the tree in and decorated it with the ornaments he recognized. I played Bing Crosby on a loop. I sent out a group text in November. Christmas at Grandpa's. He's really looking forward to it. Please, everyone come. Noon. I'll cook. Marcus replied, "We're going to Aspen this year. Taking the kids skiing. We'll FaceTime." Sarah replied, "Greg and I are going to his parents' place in Florida. Sorry. Send our love." My mother replied, "I'm hosting a brunch for my new boyfriend's family. It's important for me to make a good impression. Maybe we can stop by the week after?" Nobody came. Not a single soul. Christmas morning, I dressed him in his best flannel shirt. I shaved his face. I combed his hair. I made a turkey breast and mashed potatoes. He sat at the head of the table. He looked at the empty chairs. He looked at the extra place settings I had laid out, just in case. "Where are they?" he asked. His voice was clear. The fog had lifted for a moment, which was almost crueler. "They couldn't make it, Grandpa," I said. "The weather. The flights got cancelled. It's a bad storm." I lied. It was 60 degrees and sunny outside. I had closed the curtains so he wouldn't see the sunshine. "Oh," he said. He looked down at his plate. "Busy. Everyone is busy." "Yeah," I said. "They sent their love, though." "Marcus used to love the train set," he mumbled. "Is the train set under the tree?" "It is," I said. "Did he see it?" "I'll send him a picture." He ate 2 bites of turkey and then pushed the plate away. "I'm tired, David. I want to go to bed." "It's only 1 o'clock, Grandpa." "I want to go to bed." I put him to bed. Then I went into the living room, sat in front of the Christmas tree, and drank an entire bottle of wine. I looked at the pile of gifts they had sent, impersonal things. A scarf. A calendar. A generic grandpa mug. They hadn't even bothered to wrap them. They were in the Amazon shipping boxes. I took the Amazon boxes outside to the fire pit and burned them. I watched the cardboard curl and blacken. I didn't give him the gifts. I told him they got lost in the mail. He didn't remember to ask again. The end came fast. Pneumonia. In the 5th year, his swallowing reflex weakened. He aspirated some water. By the time I got him to the ER, his oxygen was in the 70s. The hospital stay was a nightmare of beeping machines and fluorescent lights. I slept in the chair next to his bed. I didn't shower for 3 days. This time, the family did show up. But not to hold his hand. They showed up because the doctors used the word palliative. They swarmed the ICU waiting room. "What does the will say about life support?" Marcus asked the doctor before he even asked if Arthur was in pain. "We need to make sure everything is in order," my mother said to me, pulling me into the hallway. "David, do you have the keys to the safe?" "The one in his study." "He's dying, Mom," I said. "Can you focus on that?" "We are focusing on reality," she hissed. "We need to secure the assets. If he passes, the house will be empty. We can't risk a break-in." "I live there," I reminded her. "Yes, well," she waved her hand dismissively. "We'll need to discuss your living arrangements once this is all over. You'll probably want to move on. Get your life back." Get my life back. As if I had just misplaced it. As if I hadn't carved pieces of myself off to keep him warm. Arthur lasted 2 more days. In his final hours, everyone was in the room. They were performing again. Marcus was holding his hand, looking solemn. Sarah was reading a psalm. My mother was stroking his hair. I stood in the corner. I didn't want to touch him. I didn't want to be part of their tableau. I knew he hated them. I knew that in his moments of clarity, he had called Marcus a greedy bastard, and Sarah a vapid ghost. He opened his eyes one last time. He looked around the room. His gaze passed over Marcus, over Sarah, over my mother. It landed on me in the corner. He tried to lift his hand. I stepped forward, pushing past Marcus. I took his hand. It was cold and papery. "Davy," he whispered. It was the nickname he hadn't used since I was 10. "I'm here, Grandpa." "The box," he wheezed. "Red box." "I know," I lied. "I didn't know about a red box. I'll take care of it." "Good boy," he breathed. And then he was gone. The monitor flatlined. The wailing started immediately. Aunt Sarah threw herself onto his chest. It was theatrical and grotesque. I walked out of the room. I went to the vending machine and bought a stale granola bar. I ate it while staring at a poster about washing hands. I felt nothing but a massive crushing weight lift off my shoulders, followed immediately by a wave of guilt for feeling relieved. The week between the death and the funeral was a blur of intruders. They descended on the house. I came home from the hospital to find Marcus's car in the driveway. He had a locksmith with him. "What are you doing?" I asked, parking my beat-up sedan behind his luxury SUV. "Changing the locks," Marcus said. "Standard procedure during probate. Securing the assets." My stuff is inside. I live here. We know, David. We aren't kicking you out today. But you need to understand, this is an estate now. We can't have you misplacing things. I let them in. I watched them walk through the house like they were shopping. That credenza is mid-century modern, Sarah said, tapping a piece of furniture with her manicured nail. That's easily 2,000 at auction. I want the grandfather clock, my mother said. It always terrified me as a child, but it fits the aesthetic of my new condo. The Mustang, Marcus said. I've already called a trailer. We're moving it to my climate-controlled garage tomorrow. It needs to be preserved. They put sticky notes on things. Yellow notes with names. Marcus on the TV. Sarah on the china cabinet. Linda, my mother, on the silver set. They didn't put a sticky note on the recliner he sat in for 5 years. They didn't put a note on the slightly stained rug where he spilled his coffee. They didn't want the reality of him. They wanted the value of him. I went to my room, the guest room, and locked the door. I packed my bag. I knew my time here was done. While they were downstairs arguing over who got the oriental rug, I remembered his last words. Red box. I knew where he kept his important things. There was a floor safe in the closet of the master bedroom. But Marcus had already asked for the combination, and I had told him I didn't have it, a lie. I waited until they left for the night. They left me there, guarding the hoard as I thought of it. I went into the master bedroom. It smelled like him. Old Spice and sickness. I rolled back the carpet in the closet. I dialed the combination, my birthday. The safe opened. Inside, there were the usual papers. The deed to the house. Life insurance policies. The original will. But sitting on top of the stack was a red metal box, the kind you buy at an office supply store for petty cash. It wasn't locked. I opened it. Inside were 3 thick envelopes and a smaller velvet pouch. The envelopes were addressed to Marcus, Sarah, and Linda. The velvet pouch had my name on it. I opened the pouch. Inside was the key to the Mustang. And a note. Davy. Take the car tonight. Park it at your friend's place. Do not tell them. It is yours. I signed the title over 3 years ago. Look in the glove box. I smiled. It was the first time I had smiled in a week. I went downstairs. I walked out to the garage. The Mustang was under a tarp. I pulled the tarp off. It was a 1967 Fastback. Pristine. I opened the glove box. There it was. The title. Transfer of ownership dated 3 years prior. Notarized. He had done it when his friend, a notary, came over for coffee one day. He had planned this. I put the key in the ignition. It roared to life. I backed it out of the garage, keeping the lights off until I hit the street. I drove it 3 towns over to my friend Mike's house. Mike had a garage. Keep it here, I told him. Don't let anyone see it. I took an Uber back to the house. I put the tarp back over a stack of boxes to make it look like the car was still there under the shape. Then I put the red box back in the safe and locked it. Which brings us back to the cemetery. We finished the burial. We did the reception at the local country club, paid for by the estate, of course. I drank tap water and stood by the wall. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., Marcus told me as he was leaving. Mr. Henderson's office. Don't be late. And dress appropriately. I'll be there, I said. I went home to the empty house. It felt huge and silent. The ghosts of the last 5 years were everywhere. The spot where he fell in the hallway. The kitchen table where we played cards. I slept for 12 hours. Mr. Henderson was an old-school lawyer. Mahogany desk, green banker's lamp, walls lined with books that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. He had been Arthur's lawyer for 40 years. He looked at the family arranged in front of him. Marcus, Sarah, and Linda sat in the front row of leather chairs. I sat in the back, on a folding chair. We are here to read the last will and testament of Arthur James Miller, Henderson said. His voice was gravelly. Let's get to the assets, Marcus said, crossing his legs. We know the breakdown. Equal thirds split between the children. We just need the probate timeline. Henderson peered over his glasses. I assume you are referring to the will dated 2010? Yes, Marcus said. That will was revoked, Henderson said calmly. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Revoked? My mother squeaked. When? 6 months ago, Henderson said. Mr. Miller requested a rewrite. I visited him at his home. David facilitated the meeting, though he was not present in the room for the drafting. They all turned to look at me. Their eyes were lasers. You manipulated him. Sarah screeched. He was mentally incompetent. We'll contest it. Mr. Miller was evaluated by a neurologist on the day of the signing, Henderson said, pulling a document from the file. At my insistence. He was found to be lucid and fully aware of his actions. The video recording of the signing also confirms his state of mind. Marcus went pale. What does the new will say? Henderson cleared his throat. To my children, Marcus, Sarah, and Linda, I leave the contents of the red box, located in my safe. Henderson reached under his desk and pulled out the red metal box. I hadn't realized he had retrieved it. He opened it. He handed the thick envelopes to each of them. Marcus tore his open first. It wasn't a check. It was a stack of papers. What is this? Marcus asked. Itemized invoices, Henderson said. Your father kept very detailed records. Marcus pulled out a sheet. November 2019. Roof repair. $8,000. Why do I have this? Read the note attached, Henderson said. Marcus read aloud. Marcus. You refused to help with the roof. You bought a boat. I have deducted the cost of the roof repair, plus interest, from your inheritance. Sarah ripped hers open. October 2020. Respite care denial. Cost of hiring a nurse for 2 days, $1,200. You went to a Pilates retreat. Deducted. Linda opened hers. Christmas 2021. Cost of emotional distress, priceless. But let's call it $10,000. You went to brunch. The envelopes were filled with them. Every time they said no. Every time they missed a birthday. Every time they refused to pay for a medical bill. He had logged it. He had put a dollar amount on their neglect. This is a joke, Marcus slammed the papers down. This is petty. The estate is worth millions. These are just pennies. We are getting to the estate, Henderson said. He turned the page. The house, Henderson read. My primary residence. I leave this to my grandson, David. My mother gasped. The house? That's the bulk of the asset. There is a condition, Henderson continued. David cannot sell the house for 10 years. He must live in it, or rent it out, but he cannot liquidate it. If he attempts to sell, ownership reverts to a charity for stray dogs. I smiled. Good one, Grandpa. The investments, Henderson said. The stocks, bonds, and savings accounts. This was it. The big pot. Marcus leaned forward. I have instructed Mr. Henderson to liquidate all investment accounts, Henderson read. And? Marcus asked, his hands shaking. The total value was $2.4 million. Yes. These funds have been placed into a trust. A trust for us? Sarah asked hopefully. A trust for the long-term care of families suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia who cannot afford home care, Henderson read. The Arthur Miller Dignity Fund. It will provide grants to families so they do not have to rely on selfish children. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. He gave it away. Marcus whispered. He gave it all away. Not all, Henderson said. He left specific cash bequests. To whom? To David, Henderson looked at me. He left a cash sum of $250,000 to David, to be used for starting the life he paused for me. This is undue influence. Marcus shouted, standing up. He was crazy. I'm suing. David, you poisoned him against us. Henderson raised a hand. There is one more thing. A video message. Mr. Miller insisted it be played in the event of any resistance. Henderson pressed a button on his laptop and turned the screen toward them. Grandpa's face filled the screen. He was sitting in his recliner. He looked frail, but his eyes were sharp. Hello kids, Video Grandpa said. If you're seeing this, you're upset. You're probably yelling at David. Stop it. He leaned into the camera. I want you to know that this wasn't David's idea. He begged me to call you. He begged me to invite you. He lied to me for years, telling me you were busy, or sick, or stranded by weather. He tried to protect your image in my eyes. But I knew. I always knew. He coughed, a dry, rattling sound. You think you are owed this money because of biology. But family isn't blood. Family is who changes your diaper at 3 a.m. Family is who holds your hand when you're scared. You didn't do the work. You don't get the paycheck. He paused. Marcus, enjoy the invoices. I hope they remind you of the boat. Sarah, I hope your Pilates core is strong enough to carry the weight of your guilt. Linda, I hope your new boyfriend likes a woman who abandons her father. David, he said, his voice softening. Take the car. Take the house. Go to Europe. Find a girl. Live. Thank you for being the only man in the family. The screen went black. Marcus stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. The Mustang, Marcus said suddenly. Where is the Mustang? That wasn't in the will. That's part of the residual estate. That means it's split 3 ways. Actually, I spoke up for the first time. I have the title. He transferred it to me 3 years ago. It's not part of the estate. Marcus looked like he was going to have a stroke. You stole it, he accused. It was a gift, I said. And it's currently in a secure location that you don't know about. I stood up. I felt 10 feet tall. I think we're done here, I said to Henderson. Indeed, the lawyer said, closing the folder. I will be in touch regarding the transfer of the deed and the check, David. I walked toward the door. David, wait, my mother said. She stood up, tears streaming down her face again. But this time, they looked different. They looked like fear. David, honey, you can't just cut us out. We are family. That house, it's too big for you. Maybe we can work something out? I could move in, help you manage it. I looked at her. I saw the woman who had left me alone for 5 years. The woman who sat on the edge of the sofa and wouldn't take off her coat. I don't think so, Mom, I said. I'm going to be pretty busy. I have a lot of life to catch up on. But the money, Sarah said. $250,000. David, surely you can share. We have debts. I have debts too, I said. I have 5 years of lost wages to make up for. I opened the door. Oh, and Uncle Marcus? I said. He looked up, his face purple with rage. The roof is holding up great. You really missed out on a good investment. I walked out of that office and into the bright sunlight. The air smelled sweeter. The traffic noise sounded like music. I didn't go straight home. I went to the dealership and bought a brand new pair of sunglasses. Then I took an Uber to Mike's house. We pulled the tarp off the Mustang. It gleamed in the garage light. How did it go? Mike asked. Better than expected, I said. I got in the car. I cranked the engine. It rumbled, a deep throat-clearing growl that shook the floorboards. I drove to the cemetery. I parked the Mustang right on the path, where he would have liked it. I walked to the fresh grave. I didn't pray. I just stood there. You old bastard, I said softly. You really did it. I imagined him somewhere, laughing. I drove home to my house. The next few months were ugly, of course. Marcus tried to sue. He couldn't find a lawyer who would take the case after seeing the video and the neurologist's report. He spent a fortune on legal consultations, only to be told he had no leg to stand on. Sarah tried to guilt-trip me on Facebook. She wrote long, vague posts about betrayal and ungrateful children. I blocked her. My mother tried to visit. I changed the locks, again. I installed a Ring doorbell. When she rang it, I spoke to her through the speaker. I'm not interested, Mom. She stopped coming after a month. I renovated the house. I got rid of the hospital bed. I ripped up the carpet that smelled like illness. I painted the walls. I made it mine. But I kept his study exactly the way it was. Sometimes, I sit in there with a glass of whiskey. I look at the picture of us, me as a kid, him young and strong, sitting on the hood of the Mustang. I realized something during the renovation. The inheritance wasn't the money. The inheritance wasn't the house or the car. The inheritance was the fact that when I look in the mirror, I don't see a stranger. I see a man who did the right thing when it was hard. I see a man who can sleep at night. They have their boats and their condos and their social standings. But they have to live with the knowledge that they are hollow. They have to live with the invoices in that red box. I have my grief. I miss him every day. But I don't have regrets. And that, I realized, is the most valuable thing he left me. 6 months later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from the Arthur Miller Dignity Fund. Dear David, we wanted to share the first story of a family helped by your grandfather's legacy. A young woman named Elena. She is 26. She cares for her father, who has early-onset Alzheimer's. She was about to have to put him in a state facility because she couldn't afford to quit her job to watch him during the day. Because of the grant, she was able to hire a home health aide. She kept her job. Her father is safe at home. She sent a note for the donor. It's enclosed. I opened the handwritten note. To the family of Arthur Miller. You saved us. I felt so alone. I thought nobody understood what it's like to be young and drowning in caretaking. Thank you for throwing me a lifeline. I promised to take good care of him. I sat on my front porch, reading the note. The sun was setting, casting long orange shadows across the lawn that I had just mowed. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. David. I'm in a bit of a bind. The IRS is auditing the business. I know things were heated, but family is family. Could we meet for coffee? I could really use a loan. Just a short-term thing. I looked at the text. I looked at the note from Elena. I typed back. Uncle Marcus. I'm afraid I can't help. My funds are tied up. But I have a suggestion. If you need money, maybe you should try fixing roofs. I hear it pays about $8,000 if you do it yourself. Do not contact me again. I blocked the number. I walked down the driveway to the Mustang. I wiped a speck of dust off the fender. Let's go for a drive, Grandpa, I said. I got in, rolled the windows down, and drove into the sunset, leaving the ghosts behind me for good. Part 2, The Aftermath and the Aunt's Revenge. You might think the story ends there. The hero rides off in the sunset, the villains are vanquished, and the credits roll. But real life isn't a movie. And toxic families don't just disappear because you blocked a number. They fester. They plot. And when money is involved, they get desperate. About a year after the funeral, I was finally settling into my life. I had started a small graphic design agency, working from the home office. I had met someone new, a girl named Claire, who was a nurse. She understood. On our second date, I told her about the 5 years I spent caring for him. She didn't look at me with pity, she looked at me with respect. That's when I knew she was a keeper. Things were good. Then the lawsuit arrived. It wasn't from Marcus. It was from Aunt Sarah. I was served the papers on a Tuesday morning. A process server knocked on the door, the same door I had barred my mother from. I opened the envelope. Civil suit, Sarah Miller versus David Miller. Claim, unjust enrichment, conversion of property, and elder abuse. She was suing me for the contents of the house. Specifically, she was claiming that the antiques inside the house were family heirlooms that predated Grandpa's ownership, a lie, and therefore were not his to leave to me. She was claiming that I had converted these items for my own use. But the kicker was the elder abuse claim. She was alleging that I had isolated him to brainwash him. I called Mr. Henderson immediately. This is harassment, David, Henderson said over the phone. But we have to answer it. It will cost money to defend. How much money? Retainers, court fees, depositions. It could run into the tens of thousands if she drags it out. I felt the old rage bubbling up. They couldn't touch the trust. They couldn't get the house because of the clause. So they were trying to bleed me dry through legal fees. It was a war of attrition. I'll fight it, I said. Good man, Henderson said. A week later, I was in a deposition room. Sarah sat across from me. She looked haggard. The stress of being broke, or at least, not as rich as she wanted to be, was showing. Her Botox was wearing off, and she looked angry. Her lawyer was a slimeball in a cheap suit, a far cry from the high-powered attorneys the family used to employ. "Mr. Miller," the lawyer began, "is it true that you restricted access to Arthur Miller during the final years of his life?" "No," I said. "I invited them constantly. We have affidavits from Sarah Miller stating she was told not to come." I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Is something funny?" the lawyer asked. "I have phone records," I said. "I have 5 years of text messages. I have emails. I have the diary." Sarah's eyes widened. "What diary?" "Grandpa didn't just keep invoices in that red box," I said, bluffing slightly. "The invoices were real, but I decided to improvise. He kept a journal. Every day. He wrote down who called and who didn't." Sarah whispered something to her lawyer. The lawyer cleared his throat. "We demand production of this diary." "I'll be happy to provide it in discovery," I said, "along with the security camera footage." "Security camera?" Sarah squeaked. "I installed cameras in year 3, I said, to monitor him when I was in the other room. But they also recorded the front door. They recorded exactly how many times you visited, Sarah. Do you want to guess the number? In 3 years." She went pale. 4 times, I said. "You visited 4 times in 3 years. Total duration, less than 2 hours." Her lawyer looked at her. "Is this true?" "He's lying," she hissed. "The footage is time-stamped and uploaded to the cloud," I said. "I can have it on a hard drive for the judge by tomorrow." The deposition ended 20 minutes later. They withdrew the lawsuit the next day. But it wasn't over. My mother was the next to strike. But she didn't use lawyers. She used emotional terrorism. She showed up at my work, my home office. But she didn't come alone. She brought her pastor. A man I had never seen before. I saw them on the Ring camera. "David, please," she said to the camera. "Pastor John just wants to facilitate a reconciliation. We are worried about your soul." I opened the door. I shouldn't have, but I was curious. "Hello, David," Pastor John said. He had a shiny suit and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Your mother tells me there is great strife in this family. The Lord wants us to forgive." "The Lord didn't change Grandpa's diapers," I said. "David," my mother gasped. "Don't be blasphemous." "It's the truth," I said. "Where was the church when we needed volunteers? I called the parish office 3 times asking for visitors. Nobody came." Pastor John shifted uncomfortably. "We must have missed those messages." "What do you want, Mom?" I asked. "I'm losing my condo," she blurted out. "The rent went up. Marcus can't help me anymore because of his audit. I have nowhere to go." She looked small. For a second, just a split second, I felt that biological pull. She was my mother. She gave birth to me. "I have a spare room," I said. Her face lit up. "Oh, David. Thank you. I knew you were a good boy." "Not here," I said. Her face fell. "What?" "I have a friend who manages a senior living facility," I said. "State subsidized. It's clean. Small apartments. Based on income." "A home," she recoiled. "Like 4 poor people." "It's a roof," I said. "It's more than you offered Grandpa. You wanted to put him in a warehouse." "How dare you," she spat. "I am your mother. You live in a mansion and you offer me a tenement." "This isn't a mansion," I said. "It's a house. A house I earned. And you aren't destitute, Mom. You have a job. You just live above your means. You want me to subsidize your lifestyle like Grandpa did." "You owe me," she screamed. "I raised you." "You raised me to be a servant," I said. "And I served. I served Grandpa. I'm done serving." I closed the door. She pounded on it for 5 minutes. Pastor John tried to calm her down. Eventually, they left. I went into the kitchen. My hands were shaking. It's never easy to cut the cord, even when the cord is strangling you. Claire came down from the upstairs bathroom. She had overheard everything. She wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You okay?" Yeah, I said. I think that was the final test. You passed, she said. 2 years later. The Arthur Miller Dignity Fund had grown. The story of the trust had gotten out locally. People started donating. It turned out, a lot of people had been in my shoes. A lot of people had been the chosen one to care for a dying relative, while the rest of the family watched from the sidelines. We held a gala. A small one. To raise more money for respite nurses. I stood at the podium. I wore a tuxedo, my own, not rented. My grandfather used to say that character is what you do when nobody is looking, I told the crowd. But I learned that character is also what you do when everyone is looking away. I looked out at the audience. And there in the back, I saw a face I recognized. It was Cousin Greg. Aunt Sarah's son. The one who wanted the car. He looked older. He looked tired. After the speech, he approached me. I tensed up, ready for a fight. David, he said. Greg, I nodded. I didn't come to start trouble, he said. He had his hands in his pockets. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I waited. I was a brat, he said. I was 22. I just listened to what Mom said. She told us you were mooching off Grandpa. She told us you were living there rent-free and taking advantage of him. And you believed her? I didn't know any better, he said. But Mom is sick now. I felt a jolt of shock. What? She had a stroke. 3 months ago. The irony hit me like a physical blow. She's in bad shape, Greg continued. She needs 24-hour care. She's broke, David. The lawsuit against you drained her savings. Marcus won't help. He's bankrupt. Greg looked at me with tears in his eyes. I'm doing it, he said. I'm taking care of her. I moved in. I change her. I feed her. And God, David, it's so hard. It's so unbelievably hard. He started to cry. Not fake tears. Real, ugly, exhausted tears. I get it now, he sobbed. I get what you went through. And I'm sorry we weren't there. I'm so sorry. I looked at my cousin. I saw the dark circles under his eyes. I saw the frayed cuffs of his shirt. I saw myself, 5 years ago. I reached out and put a hand on his shoulder. Is she eligible for Medicaid? I asked. We're trying, he said. But the paperwork, and the wait lists. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a card. Call this number tomorrow, I said. It's the direct line for the trust administrator. Greg looked at the card. David, I can't. After everything she did to you. The trust is for the caregivers, I said. Not the patients. You're the caregiver now, Greg. You're doing the work. The trust will pay for a nurse 3 days a week. It will give you a break. Why? He asked. Why would you help her? I'm not helping her, I said firmly. I'm helping you. Because I know that at 3 a.m., when she's screaming and you haven't slept, you're going to need to know that someone sees you. Greg hugged me. He held on tight. Thank you, he whispered. Just promise me one thing, I said. Anything. Don't let her know the money came from Grandpa, I said. Let her think it's from the state. Let her think she got lucky. I don't want her absolution. And I don't want her gratitude. Deal, Greg said. He walked away. I watched him go. I felt a sense of closure that the lawsuit and the angry texts never gave me. The cycle was breaking. Greg was doing the right thing. I drove home in the Mustang. The odometer rolled over to 100,000 miles as I pulled into the driveway. I walked into the house. Claire was in the kitchen, making tea. Our dog, a rescue obviously, was sleeping on the rug. How was it? She asked. Good, I said. Greg was there. Sarah's son. Yeah. He's taking care of her now. She had a stroke. Claire paused. Karma. Maybe, I said. But he's a good kid. He's stepping up. You helped him, didn't you? Maybe, I smiled. I sat down at the table. I looked around the kitchen. This house, which had been a prison of sorrow for so long, was now full of light. It was full of life. I thought about the red box. I still have it. It's empty now, except for one thing. I kept the note Grandpa wrote me. Davy, take the car tonight. I framed it. It hangs in the garage, next to the tool bench. Sometimes, when I'm working on the car, I talk to him. You were right, I say. Family isn't blood. And I know, wherever he is, he's nodding. The family is scattered now. Marcus lost his business and moved to a small apartment in Nevada. I hear he works as a shift manager at a casino. My mother lives in the subsidized senior housing I found for her. We talk on Christmas and birthdays. Short, polite calls. She complains about the drafty windows. I listen, say that's too bad, and hang up. Sarah is bedridden. Greg sends me updates sometimes. He tells me she's bitter. She complains that nobody visits her. She wonders why her friends have abandoned her. I told Greg to tell her, people are busy. It's petty. I know. But I earned the right to be a little petty. Part 3, The Final Echo. 3 years after the gala, I found something else. I was cleaning out the attic. The one place I hadn't fully renovated yet. It was filled with old trunks and boxes that predated even Grandpa. I found a dusty leather satchel tucked behind a support beam. It had Arthur 1955 stamped on it. I opened it. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. They were letters written by his father, my great-grandfather. I sat on the floorboards and read them. It turned out, history repeats itself. Dear Artie, the letters read, I know your brothers are giving you a hard time about staying on the farm to help me. They have their big city jobs and their fancy wives. But you are the one here, plowing the fields and fixing the roof. I want you to know, I'm leaving the land to you. Don't tell them yet. Let them think what they want. But you earned it, son. I sat there, stunned. Grandpa had gone through the exact same thing. He had been the caregiver. He had been the one left behind while his siblings went off to find their fortunes. He had been the one to inherit the worthless farm that eventually became the prime real estate this house sat on. He never told me. He never told me that he knew exactly how it felt. He wasn't just watching me struggle, he was watching me become him. I cried then. Real, hard tears. For the first time since the funeral, I realized that the connection between us wasn't just grandfather and grandson. It was a lineage of duty. A secret handshake of the sacrificial lambs. I took the letters downstairs. I put them in the red box. That night, I had a dream. I was standing by the Mustang. Grandpa was there. He looked young again. He was wearing his bomber jacket. You found the letters, he said. Yeah, I said. Why didn't you tell me? Because you had to choose it, he said. If I told you there was a reward at the end, it wouldn't have been love. It would have been a job. You had to do it for nothing, so that you could deserve everything. He kicked the tire of the Mustang. Keep the oil changed, Davy. I will. And David. Yeah. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're dying to tell the people you love that you appreciate them. He got in the car and drove away. I woke up next to Claire. The morning sun was streaming in. I woke her up. What is it? She asked, sleepy and confused. I love you, I said. And thank you. For putting up with my late nights. For loving this house. For everything. She smiled. You're weird this morning. Just listen, I said. I appreciate you. She kissed me. I appreciate you too. Now go make coffee. I went downstairs. I made coffee. I poured 2 mugs. I walked out to the porch. The neighborhood was quiet. The birds were singing. I am 31 years old now. I have a few gray hairs. My back hurts sometimes when it rains, a souvenir from lifting a 200-pound man. But I am free. And to anyone reading this, anyone who is currently in the trenches, washing the sheets, counting the pills, staring at a phone that never rings with offers of help, keep going. They see you. The ones you are caring for, they see you. Even if they can't say it. Even if they are lost in the fog. They know who is holding their hand. And the ones who aren't there? The ones making excuses? Let them go. They are chasing things that will rust and rot. You are building something that lasts. You are building a soul. And trust me, when the reading of the will comes, that is the only asset that matters. I took a sip of coffee. It was hot and bitter. "Here's to you, Arthur," I whispered. A sudden breeze kicked up, rustling the leaves of the oak tree he planted 50 years ago. It sounded like a chuckle. I went back inside to live my life. Epilogue. 10 years later. The 10-year clause on the house expired yesterday. I can sell it now. The market value has skyrocketed. Developers are offering insane amounts of money for the land. They want to tear down the house and build 4 luxury condos on the lot. Uncle Marcus, who is now working as a greeter at a Walmart in Reno, according to the grapevine, sent me a letter. A handwritten one. "David, I heard the restriction is up. If you sell, you'll be a rich man. I know we have our differences, but surely you can spare a small percentage for your old uncle. I'm not doing well." I didn't burn the letter. I filed it in the red box. Then I called the lawyer, Mr. Henderson's daughter, who runs the firm now. "I'm not selling," I told her. "It's a lot of money, David," she said. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "What do you want to do with the property title? Keep it in your name." "No," I said. "I want to put it in the trust." "The Dignity Fund?" "Yes. I want to turn the house into a respite center. A place where caregivers can bring their loved ones for the day. A place that smells like baking cookies, not bleach. A place with a garden." "That's a wonderful idea," she said. "But you'll lose the asset." "I don't need the asset," I said. "I have my business. I have Claire. We have our son, Arthur. Little Artie is 3. He loves the Mustang. He sits in the driver's seat and pretends to steer." "Okay," she said. "I'll draw up the papers." I hung up. I walked into the living room. Artie was playing with a train set, the one I bought him, since the original was lost to time. "Daddy, look," he yelled. "The train is going fast." "I see it, buddy," I said. I looked at the walls. Soon, this wouldn't be my house anymore. It would belong to everyone. It would be a sanctuary for people like Elena, and Greg, and me. It was the right choice. It was the only choice. Grandpa didn't leave me the house to make me rich. He left me the house to teach me a lesson. He trapped me in it for 10 years so I would learn to love it, and then gave me the freedom to release it so I could prove I understood what it meant. Possessions are temporary. Acts of service are eternal. I picked up Artie and swung him around. He shrieked with laughter. "Who's my good boy?" I asked. "I am," he yelled. "Yes, you are," I said. "And you're going to be a good man, too." I carried him to the window. We watched the wind blow through the trees. The cycle was broken. The legacy was safe. And the red box? I buried it in the backyard, under the oak tree. It contains the invoices, the petty letters, the receipts of anger. I put them back in the earth. Let the roots of the tree feed on them. Let the bitterness turn into something green and strong. I'm done with it. I have a respite center to build. And I have a Mustang to drive. The end. I never thought I would be the guy posting a manifesto on the internet about a neighbor dispute. You see these titles, usually in all caps, talking about entitled parents or neighbors from hell, and you think it is hyperbole. You think it is creative writing designed to farm karma. I used to think that too. I used to read them during my lunch break, shake my head, and tell myself that real life is boring. Real life is settling disputes with a handshake and a beer. Real life is reasonable. I was wrong. I am writing this down now because it is finally over. The lawyers have signed off, the settlement is done, and the for sale sign is finally gone from the lawn next door. I have the security footage saved on 3 different hard drives, one of them in a safety deposit box at the bank, just in case. Paranoid? Maybe. But if you had lived through the last 8 months of my life, you would be paranoid too. Let me start from the beginning. My name is David. I am a 32-year-old accountant. I am boring. I like spreadsheets. I like predictability. When I bought my first house in a quiet cul-de-sac in the suburbs, I was looking for exactly that, boring. I wanted a place where the biggest scandal was someone leaving their trash cans out a day too late. The house was perfect. A 3-bedroom ranch style, decent yard, and a long driveway. The only downside, if you could call it that, was how close the driveways were to the neighbors on the left. We were separated by maybe 4 feet of grass and a pathetic strip of decorative rocks. That neighbor was Gary. Gary looked like the guy you would cast in a commercial for life insurance. He was in his mid-50s, always wore polo shirts tucked into khaki shorts, and had a smile that showed too many teeth. When I was moving in, he came over with a 6-pack of craft beer and a firm handshake. "Welcome to the neighborhood," Gary had said, handing me the beer. "We like to keep things quiet around here. Good folks. You'll like it." "Thanks," I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. "I'm looking for quiet." "Good man," Gary said. He looked over my shoulder at my car. I drive a Honda Civic. It is 5 years old, silver, and reliable. It is not a show car. It has a few dings from parking lots, the kind you stop noticing after a week. "Nice commuter," Gary said, his tone shifting slightly. It wasn't an insult, but it wasn't a compliment. It was an assessment. "It gets me from A to B," I said. "Come take a look at my baby," Gary said, gesturing to his driveway. I followed him. Sitting in his driveway, gleaming under the afternoon sun, was a vintage Jaguar. British Racing Green. It was beautiful. I am not a car guy, but I know money when I see it. The chrome was mirror bright. The leather interior looked like it had never been sat in. 1967, Gary said, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper. "Restored her myself. Took me 10 years. She is not just a car, David. She is a member of the family." "It's incredible," I said honestly. "I keep her covered mostly," Gary said, eyes narrowing as he looked at the space between our driveways. "But on nice days, I like to let her breathe. I just have to be careful. You know how people are. Careless." He looked at me when he said that. He held eye contact just a second too long. "I'll be careful," I promised. "I know you will," Gary said, patting my shoulder. "We are going to be great neighbors." The first 2 months were fine. I went to work, I came home, I mowed the lawn. Gary waved when he saw me. He spent hours in his driveway washing the Jaguar with specialized cloths and sprays. I learned quickly that Gary was the unspoken sheriff of the cul-de-sac. If a dog barked too long, Gary was there. If a teenager drove too fast, Gary was there, hands on hips, shaking his head. Then came the first Tuesday of October. I had come home late from tax season prep. It was dark. I pulled into my driveway, exhausted, grabbed my bag, and went inside. I made dinner, watched an hour of TV, and went to bed. The next morning, at 7 a.m. sharp, there was a knock on my door. It wasn't a frantic knock. It was a rhythmic, authoritative rap. Tat tat tat. I opened the door in my bathrobe. It was Gary. He wasn't smiling. "Morning, Gary," I said, blinking against the light. "Everything okay?" "David," he said, his voice grave. "I think we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The car," he said. My stomach dropped. "My car?" "No. My Jaguar." I followed him out to the driveway. The morning air was crisp. The Jaguar was parked exactly where it always was. Gary walked to the passenger side, the side facing my driveway. He pointed a manicured finger at the rear fender. I leaned in. I squinted. There, almost invisible unless you caught the light right, was a hairline scratch. It was maybe an inch long. "I don't see," I started. "Right there," Gary interrupted, tracing the air above the paint. "And here." He pointed to a faint smudge of silver residue. "Gary, that looks like dust," I said. "It is silver paint transfer," Gary said firmly. "From your door. You opened your door into my fender last night." I looked at my car. I looked at the distance. I had parked closer to the house last night. My door would have had to open 4 feet wide to hit his car. "Gary, I parked way over," I argued. "And I'm careful. I didn't hit your car." "It wasn't there yesterday," Gary said. "You came home late. I heard you. You were tired. Mistakes happen, David. I am not mad. I am just disappointed." "I didn't do this," I insisted. Gary sighed. It was a long, suffering sigh. "Look, David. I know you are new here. I don't want to make this a thing. I have a guy who can buff this out. It's a specialized process for this kind of vintage paint. It's not cheap, But if we handle it now, we don't have to involve insurance. You know how rates are. I didn't hit your car, I repeated, feeling like a petulant child. The silver paint is right there, Gary said, his voice hardening. Don't make me call the HOA. Or the police for a hit and run on private property. I froze. A hit and run? For a scratch I couldn't even see. How much? I asked, defeated. I just wanted to go to work. I didn't want a war. 300, Gary said. My guy gives me a deal. $300. It was a lot, but it wasn't bankruptcy. I calculated the cost of fighting it. The time. The awkwardness. Fine, I said. I'll write you a check. Cash is better, Gary said. My guy prefers cash. I went to the ATM that afternoon. I gave Gary $300 in 20s. He shook my hand, smiled that toothy smile, and said, "Thanks for being a stand-up guy, David." Water under the bridge. I thought that was it. I was an idiot. November passed without incident. I started parking my car on the street, just to be safe. But then the winter restrictions kicked in. No street parking overnight during snowplow season. I had to use the driveway. I was paranoid. Every time I opened my door, I held the edge with my hand. I made sure there was a miles-wide gap between my Civic and his Jaguar. I even started backing in, so my driver's side was facing away from his car. December 12th. I remember the date because it was my mother's birthday. I was getting ready to drive to her place when Gary walked over. He was holding a clipboard. "David," he said. No greeting. "Gary. We have a situation again." He walked me to the Jaguar. This time, the damage was visible. A distinct dent in the side panel, right near the gas cap. And inside the dent, a smear of silver paint. "Gary, there is no way," I said, my voice rising. "I park backwards now. My door opens the other way." "I know," Gary said. "This didn't happen when you got out. It happened when you were pulling in. You cut the wheel too hard. Your rear bumper clipped me." "My rear bumper is plastic," I shouted. "And I have backup sensors." They would have screamed at me. "Sensors fail," Gary said calmly. "And look at your bumper." He walked over to my Civic. He pointed to a scuff on the corner of my rear bumper. A scuff that had been there since I bought the car used. "That's old damage," I said. "It looks fresh to me," Gary said. "And it matches the height of the dent perfectly." "I am not paying for this," I said. "I didn't do it." "David," Gary said, stepping closer. He invaded my personal space. He smelled of expensive cologne and aggression. "This is a vintage panel. Getting this rolled out and repainted? This is serious. I got an estimate already. $1,200. "You're insane," I said. "Call the insurance then. I want an adjuster to see this." Gary's expression shifted. The friendly neighbor mask slipped for a fraction of a second, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. "You don't want to do that, David. You have a claim on your record already, don't you? From that fender bender 3 years ago." How did he know that? I hadn't told him. "Insurance rates in this zip code are brutal," Gary continued. "You file a claim for this, your premiums double. Plus the deductible. Plus the points. It's simple math. $1,200 cash, and we keep the suits out of it." "I don't have $1,200 lying around," I lied. "I can take installments," Gary said. "I'm not a monster." "I'm not paying you." Gary nodded slowly. "Okay. Have it your way." He turned and walked back to his house. 2 days later, I got a letter from the HOA. A citation for unneighborly conduct and property damage. A fine of $500. Gary was on the board. Of course he was. Then came the letter from a lawyer. Not an insurance company, but a private attorney representing Gary. A demand letter for repairs, citing eyewitness testimony. I panicked. I called the lawyer on the letterhead. He was real. "My client is willing to settle out of court for $1,500, the lawyer said on the phone. "To cover the damage and legal fees." I didn't do it. I yelled into the receiver. "Mr. Thompson," the lawyer said dryly. My client has a witness. His wife saw you pull in and hit the car. His wife. Linda. Linda was a mouse of a woman. I had seen her maybe 3 times. She always looked at the ground. The idea of her testifying against me made me feel sick. I paid. I emptied my savings account. I wrote a check to the law firm. I felt like I was being mugged in slow motion, day after day. After that, I stopped parking in the driveway entirely. I parked 3 streets over, in a guest lot for the community park, and walked to my house in the freezing cold. I wasn't going to give him another chance. Christmas came and went. I stayed inside. I ordered groceries online so I wouldn't have to move my car. I felt like a prisoner in my own home. I watched Gary through the blinds. He would stand in his driveway, polishing that car, looking at my house with a smirk. January was quiet. I thought maybe, just maybe, he was done. I had paid his tax. Maybe he had moved on to a new victim. Then came February. I had to bring my car to the house to unload some furniture I had bought. A new desk. I pulled into the driveway at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. I unloaded the boxes. I was in the driveway for a total of 15 minutes. I was hyper-aware. I checked the distance. I checked the mirrors. I didn't touch his car. I pulled out and went back to the park lot. Sunday morning. Tat tat tat. My heart hammered against my ribs. I knew that knock. I opened the door. Gary was holding a side mirror. His side mirror. "You have got to be kidding me," I whispered. "You tore it right off," Gary said. His face was red. He was acting angry this time. "Yesterday, when you were unloading those boxes, you swung a box around and took the mirror clean off. I was nowhere near your car. Linda saw you." Gary shouted. "She watched you do it. She said you looked right at it, saw it fell, and got in your car and drove away." "That is a lie." I screamed. "Get Linda out here." "She is inside trembling," Gary said. "She is afraid of you, David. You are erratic. You are destructive. I want to talk to her." "You stay away from my wife," Gary said. "This is a custom part. Sourced from England. Chrome housing. Heated glass. Do you have any idea what this costs?" "I don't care," I said. "I am not paying." $3,000, Gary said. "And that is me being generous. That is me not charging you for the emotional distress." "Get off my porch," I said. $3,000 by Friday, Gary said. "Or I file a police report for vandalism." "That's a felony, David. Over $1,000 in damage? That's jail time." He dropped the broken mirror on my doormat. It shattered. "Clean that up," he said, and walked away. I closed the door and slid down to the floor. I put my head in my hands. I was shaking. I felt trapped. I felt insane. Was I doing it? Was I sleepwalking? Was I having blackouts? No. No, I was careful. This was a setup. I knew it was a setup. But how could I prove it? It was his word and his wife's word against mine. He had the HLA. He had the lawyer. He had the vintage car sympathy. I looked at the shattered mirror on the mat. I looked at the housing. The metal was jagged. It looked like it had been pried off, not knocked off. A box would have dented it or snapped it at the joint. This looked twisted. I stood up. I went to my computer. I started researching. I didn't search for lawyers. I searched for cameras. I had a Ring doorbell, but it only faced the front walk. It didn't see the driveway gap. Gary knew that. He was smart. He knew the blind spots. I needed something he couldn't see. I went to a spy shop in the city. A real brick-and-mortar place that smelled like stale cigarettes and ozone. I bought 3 cameras. Camera 1 was a pinhole camera disguised as a screw head. I planned to mount it on the side of my garage, facing the gap. Camera 2 was a high-resolution motion-activated trail cam, the kind hunters use. It was small, matte black. I could hide it in the thick juniper bush that separated our lawns near the sidewalk. Camera 3 was the expensive one. A telephoto lens camera that I set up in my spare bedroom window, through the blinds, focused directly on the side of his Jaguar. It took me 2 days to set them up. I did it at night, wearing black, crawling through my own flower beds. I felt ridiculous. I felt like I was in a movie. But I had to know. I sent Gary a text on Tuesday. I need time to get the money. Please give me 2 weeks. He replied immediately. You have until the 25th. Don't test me, David. I had bought myself time. Now I needed bait. I brought my car back to the driveway. I parked it there. I left it there. I waited. The first 3 nights, nothing happened. The footage showed cats walking by. It showed the paperboy. It showed Gary coming home, parking, and going inside. I started to doubt myself again. Maybe he wouldn't do anything while he was waiting for the money. Maybe he would wait until I paid to invent a new damage. But greed is a funny thing. It makes people impatient. Friday night. Or rather, Saturday morning. 2:43 a.m. I was awake, watching the live feed on my second monitor while I played video games. Movement on camera 3, the bedroom window. The side door of Gary's house opened. It wasn't the front door, it was the side service door that led into his garage. Gary stepped out. He wasn't wearing his khakis. He was wearing dark sweatpants and a hoodie. He looked around. He looked at my house. My lights were off. He crept toward the Jaguar. My heart was in my throat. I hit the record button, even though it was already auto-recording. I needed to be sure. Gary crouched down by the rear wheel of his car. He was holding something. I squinted at the screen. It looked like a small toolkit. He moved to the front bumper of the Jaguar. He pulled something out of his pocket. It was a piece of sandpaper. A block. I watched, horrified and vindicated, as he deliberately rubbed the sandpaper against the chrome of his own bumper. He did it rhythmically, back and forth, roughing it up. Then he stood up and walked over to my car. He measured the height of his bumper against my door. He shook his head. It didn't line up. He went back to his garage. He came out a minute later with a rubber mallet and a towel. He placed the towel over the hood of his Jaguar. He raised the mallet. Thud. Even through the silent video feed, I felt that impact. He brought the mallet down on his own hood. Not hard enough to crush the engine, but hard enough to leave a shallow, ugly depression. He pulled the towel away. He inspected the dent. He nodded. Then, he did the thing that sealed his fate. He walked over to my car. He took a small container of silver paint, the same silver as my Civic, and a small brush. He carefully, artistically, painted a smudge of silver into the center of the dent he had just made on his green hood. He was framing me. He was manufacturing the forensic evidence. I felt a surge of adrenaline so strong my hands shook. I had him. I had him cold. But I didn't stop recording. I watched him clean up. I watched him wipe down the mallet. I watched him inspect the work from different angles to make sure it looked convincing. He went back inside at 3:15 a.m. I didn't sleep. I backed up the footage. I emailed it to myself. I put it on a USB drive. The next morning, I waited. At 8 a.m., the knock came. Tat tat tat. I opened the door. I was smiling. I couldn't help it. David, Gary said, looking grave. I don't know what to say. Morning, Gary, I said brightly. Coffee. He blinked. He wasn't expecting this energy. David, come look. I walked out. He pointed to the hood. A dent, I said. A big one. You must have dropped something on it, Gary said. Did you take out the trash last night? Swing a bag over the fence. I didn't take out the trash, I said. Well, something hit it, Gary said. And look. Silver paint. Wow, I said. That is damning. It is, Gary said. Hood work is expensive, David. This is body filler. This is repainting the whole front clip to blend it. We are talking 5,000. 5,000, I repeated. I know, Gary said. But the previous 3,000. Look, if you give me 6,000 total today, I will forget the mirror and this. I will eat the difference. Because I like you. $6,000, I said. That's a lot of money, Gary. It's better than a lawsuit, he said. You're right, I said. I need to go to the bank. Good, Gary said. I'll be here. I didn't go to the bank. I went to the insurance commissioner's office website. I looked up the reporting fraud hotline. But then I stopped. Government moves slow. I needed something faster. I looked up Gary's insurance provider. I knew who it was because I had seen the sticker in his window, and he had bragged about his specialty collector car insurance from Haggerty or one of those high-end places. I called them. I asked for the fraud department. I have video evidence of a policyholder intentionally damaging his vehicle to file third-party claims, I told the operator. That got their attention. They transferred me to an investigator named Miller. Miller was sharp. He listened. He asked for the file. I'm sending it now, I said. I uploaded the video. Stay tight, Miller said. Do not pay him. Do not confront him. Let us handle it. He wants the money today, I said. Tell him there is a delay with the bank, Miller said. Stall him. I stalled. I told Gary the bank needed to clear the large withdrawal. Gary was annoyed, but he bought it. He gave me until Monday. Monday came. I was working from home. I saw a black sedan pull up. A man in a suit got out. It wasn't Miller. It was a field adjuster. He knocked on Gary's door. Gary came out, smiling, shaking hands. He led the adjuster to the Jaguar. He pointed, he gestured, he looked sad. The adjuster took photos. Then, the adjuster turned and walked towards my house. Gary looked confused. He took a step forward. Excuse me? Where are you going? I opened the door before the adjuster knocked. Mr. Thompson, the adjuster said. I'm Mr. Henderson. I'm investigating a liability claim regarding your vehicle. Come in, I said loudly, so Gary could hear. I let him in. We stood in the foyer. Is he watching? Henderson asked, his voice dropping. Yes, I said. Mr. Miller sent me, Henderson smiled. It was a shark's smile. We saw the video. It is very high quality. Thank you. We cross-referenced his claims history, Henderson said. Did you know Gary has filed 7 claims in the last 4 years? All parked car incidents. All cash settlements or subrogation against neighbors. 7. I gasped. He's made about $40,000 tax-free, Henderson said. Plus, he uses the money to pay off gambling debts. We pulled his credit. It's a mess. So what happens now? Now, Henderson said, we have a conversation. He opened the door. Mr. Gary, he called out. Could you join us? Gary walked over, looking suspicious. Why are you in his house? We are discussing the liability, Henderson said. Please step inside. Gary stepped into my living room. He looked around with disdain. So, Gary said. Is he cutting the check? Actually, Henderson said, opening his briefcase. We are denying the claim. Gary laughed. Excuse me? You can't deny it. The damage is there. The paint match is perfect. The damage is there, Henderson agreed. But the cause of loss is fraudulent. Fraudulent. Gary's face went purple. How dare you? I am a victim here. Henderson pulled out a tablet. He tapped the screen. He turned it around. The video played. It showed the timestamp. 2:43 a.m. It showed Gary in his sweatpants. It showed the sandpaper. It showed the mallet. It showed the painting of the silver smudge. Gary went pale. Not just white, gray. He looked like he was going to vomit. That's deepfake, Gary stammered. That's AI. He made that on a computer. It matches the metadata on the original file, Henderson said calmly. And we have footage from the previous night where you are testing the camera angles with a flashlight. You missed the one in the bush, Gary. Gary looked at me. His eyes were wide, terrified. The arrogance was gone. David, he pleaded. David, tell him. It's a joke. We were prank war. I want my money back, I said. The $1,800. Plus the legal fees. I don't have it, Gary whispered. We will be pursuing criminal charges for insurance fraud, Henderson said. And we will be notifying the police regarding the attempted extortion of Mr. Thompson. But primarily, we are canceling your policy effective immediately. And we are putting you on the NICB database. You won't be able to insure a bicycle in this country, let alone a Jaguar. Gary slumped onto my cheap IKEA sofa. He put his head in his hands. Linda didn't know, he sobbed. She didn't know. I made her sign the witness statements. I told her I saw it and she just had to back me up. Don't hurt Linda. That is for the authorities to decide, Henderson said. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Gary was arrested 2 days later. Not for the scam against me specifically, but because the insurance investigation uncovered a massive ring of similar frauds he had pulled at his previous address. It turned out he wasn't just doing it to neighbors, he was doing it in parking lots, rental car agencies, everywhere. The HOA, upon seeing the police cars, suddenly became very interested in community harmony. They dropped my fines. They actually sent a fruit basket. I threw it in the trash. Linda filed for divorce within the month. She came over once, crying, to apologize. She gave me an envelope with $1,800 in it. She had sold her jewelry to pay me back. I tried to refuse it, but she insisted. She looked 10 years younger without Gary looming over her. As for the house next door, it went into foreclosure. Gary had been paying the mortgage with his scam money. Without the income, the house of cards collapsed. It sat empty for 3 months. I enjoyed every second of the silence. Last week, a new family moved in. A young couple. They drive a beat-up Subaru and a minivan. The first day they were there, the husband knocked on my door. "Hi," he said. "I'm Mike. Sorry to bother you, but our kid just kicked a soccer ball into your yard. Is it okay if I grab it?" I looked at him. I looked at the ball sitting innocently on my grass. "Go ahead," I said. "Thanks," Mike said. "Hey, nice Civic. Those things run forever, right?" "Yeah," I smiled. "They really do. I haven't taken the cameras down though. You can never be too careful." Update 1, the legal fallout. I thought the story ended there. I really did. I thought I would just go back to my spreadsheets and my quiet life. But since so many of you are asking about the specifics of the legal side and how did he get away with it for so long, I feel like I need to elaborate. It has been 6 weeks since the confrontation in my living room. The neighborhood has changed. The tension that used to hang over the cul-de-sac like smog has lifted. But dealing with the fallout of Gary's life imploding has been a job in itself. First, I had to give a deposition. Not in a courtroom, but in a conference room at a law firm downtown. Gary isn't just being sued by his insurance company, he is being sued by 4 different insurance carriers. Apparently, he rotated them. He would have a policy for 6 months, file a claim, get dropped or non-renewed, and move to the next one. The investigator, Henderson, told me that Gary was sloppy. Intelligent, but arrogant. That is a dangerous combination. He used the same photos for different claims. He would Photoshop the date stamps, but he wouldn't scrub the EXIF data. He got caught because he got greedy with me. He was farming me. That was the term Henderson used. I was a high-yield asset because I was passive and had a steady job. Sitting in that deposition, answering questions about my emotional distress, I learned about the scope of it. Gary had claimed over $120,000 in damages over 5 years. He had claimed for hail damage on days it was sunny. He had claimed for vandalism when he had keyed his own door. And here is the kicker, the Jaguar? It wasn't even his. It belonged to his brother-in-law, who was living overseas. Gary was supposed to be storing it. The brother-in-law thought the car was sitting under a tarp in a climate-controlled garage. He had no idea Gary was driving it, let alone taking a mallet to it to scam neighbors. When the brother-in-law found out, that was the end of Gary's support system. The family cut him off. I saw Gary one last time before he went to whatever facility he is in now. I think he took a plea deal for probation and restitution to avoid hard time, but he is ruined financially. He was packing boxes into a U-Haul. He looked small. The polo shirt was wrinkled. He saw me watching from my porch. He didn't wave. He didn't scowl. He just looked empty. I almost felt bad for him. Almost. Then I remembered the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the way he made me doubt my own sanity. I went inside and made a sandwich. It was the best sandwich I ever tasted. Update 2, the HMWA president. I mentioned the HMWA earlier. I feel like they deserve their own chapter in this saga because their behavior was almost as bad as Gary's. The HMWA president is a woman named Brenda. Brenda and Gary were thick as thieves. They were the dynamic duo of suburban misery. When Gary was accusing me, Brenda was the one signing off on the fines. She was the one who sent the letters about my unsightly car. After Gary was exposed, I expected Brenda to step down. Or at least apologize. Instead, she doubled down. A week after Gary was arrested, I got a citation. $50 fine, unauthorized surveillance equipment. She had seen the cameras. Specifically, the one disguised as a screwhead on my garage. I don't know how she spotted it. Maybe she was snooping with binoculars, but she cited a bylaw about altering the exterior aesthetic of the home. I was furious. I walked to the HMWA meeting that Tuesday. Usually, nobody goes to these things. It's just Brenda and 2 other cronies complaining about trash cans. This time, the room was full. Word had spread about Gary. People knew. And people realized that if Gary was a scammer, and Brenda had been enabling him, then maybe the whole board was rotten. I stood up during the open forum. I held up the citation. Brenda, I said, you fined me for the security cameras that caught a felon destroying property in our neighborhood. Are you saying you would prefer I didn't catch him? Rules are rules, David, Brenda sniffed. We can't have people turning their homes into fortresses. It lowers property values. You know what lowers property values? I asked. Insurance fraud rings operating out of House 4B. The room erupted. People started shouting out their own grievances. One guy had been fined for a bird feeder. Another woman had been harassed by Gary for parking her RV in her own driveway for 2 hours to clean it. It turned into a mutiny. They called for a vote of no confidence right there. Brenda tried to bang her gavel. Yes, she brought a gavel to a library meeting room, but nobody listened. They voted her out. The new president is the guy with the bird feeder. His first act was to dissolve the Architectural Purity Committee that Brenda and Gary had used to terrorize us. He also tore up my fine. I walked home that night feeling lighter than air. The neighborhood felt different. It felt like a community again, not a prison camp run by 2 petty tyrants. I saw Mike, the new neighbor, outside. He was struggling to get a couch through his front door. Need a hand? I asked. Please, he groaned. I helped him lift the sofa. We pivoted. We squeezed it through. Thanks, man, Mike said, wiping his brow. Beer? Sure, I said. We sat on his porch, drinking cheap domestic beer, looking at the street. So, Mike said. The realtor told us the last guy who lived here had some legal trouble. Didn't say what. I took a sip of beer. I looked at the spot where the Jaguar used to be. Yeah, I said. He had some trouble with his car. That sucks, Mike said. I'm not really a car guy. As long as it runs, I'm happy. I clinked my bottle against his. Me too, Mike. Me too. Reflections on psychological warfare. I want to talk about the gaslighting. That was the hardest part. The money was painful, yes. But the way Gary made me question my own reality? That leaves scars. There were nights I would lie in bed and replay the day. Did I hit him? I would ask myself. Maybe I did. Maybe I am just clumsy and in denial. He was so convincing. The way he would look at me with that disappointed dad face. He never screamed until the end. He was always calm, always reasonable. He made me feel like the crazy one for denying it. He used my own nature against me. I am a rule follower. I want to be a good person. I want to be a good neighbor. He knew that. He exploited it. He weaponized social pressure. By bringing his wife into it, by bringing the HMWA into it, he created a consensus reality where I was the villain. If you are reading this, and you are in a situation where someone is telling you that you did something you know you didn't do, trust your gut. Trust your memory. Get a camera. Documentation is the only kryptonite these people have. They thrive in the he said, she said. They thrive in the gray areas of social politeness. They count on you being too polite to call them a liar. Don't be polite. Be paranoid. I kept the sandpaper block. The police didn't need it. The video was enough. The adjuster didn't need it. So I kept it. It sits on a shelf in my garage. A reminder. It's a simple block of wood with 80 grit paper stapled to it. It cost maybe 50 cents to make. And he used it to steal thousands. It reminds me that evil doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes it looks like a neighbor in a polo shirt, holding a sanding block, smiling as he sands away your peace of mind. But not anymore. Now when I pull into my driveway, I don't check the distance. I don't hold my breath. I just park. I get out. I lock the door. And I sleep like a baby. Edit regarding the wife comments. A lot of you are saying Linda was a victim too. I agree. But I also struggle with it. She signed the papers. She looked me in the eye, briefly, and lied. I know she was under his thumb, likely abused emotionally, but she still participated. I forgive her, I think. Mostly because I saw the relief on her face when he was taken away. It wasn't sadness. It was the look of someone who had been holding their breath for 20 years finally exhaling. I hope she is okay. I hope she finds a guy who doesn't care about vintage cars or image. I hope she finds someone who just wants to sit on the porch and drink cheap beer. She moved to Arizona to be with her sister. I sent her a Christmas card last month. She sent one back. No message. Just a picture of a cactus and a signature. Linda. That was enough. Technical details of the sting. For the geeks asking about the camera setup, here is what I used. The screw camera was a cheap generic model from a spy site. The resolution was garbage, honestly. 720p at best. But it was crucial because it showed the angle of approach. It showed him coming from his garage. The trail cam was a Browning Strike Force. Highly recommend. The battery life is insane. It triggered perfectly when he walked past the bush. That gave us the clear shot of his face and the clothes he was wearing. The hero was the telephoto. It was a Sony mirrorless camera I rented, hooked up to a dummy battery and a capture card on my PC. I ran OBS, Open Broadcaster software, to record the buffer. I set it to record only when motion was detected in a specific region of interest, the Jaguar. The combination of the three angles is what nailed him. Angle 1, established intent, him leaving the house with tools. Angle 2, established identity, clear face shot. Angle 3, the act itself, the sanding and the mallet. If I had just one, he might have argued his way out of it. I was just doing maintenance, he could have said. But you don't do maintenance with a mallet on the hood at 3 a.m. The silver paint was the final nail. That showed premeditation to frame me. That turned it from insurance fraud into something more malicious. That's what got the police interested in the extortion angle. If you are setting up a sting, redundancy is key. One camera can fail. One camera can be obstructed. 3 cameras form a narrative. The financial toll. I am still recovering financially. The $1,500 I paid him the first time? Gone. The lawyer fees to get the settlement? Expensive. But I got the $1,800 back from Linda. And the insurance company, in a rare act of corporate decency, offered me a small consultation fee for providing the evidence that busted the ring. It wasn't much, but it covered the cost of the cameras. I'm driving the Civic into the ground. I put a bumper sticker on it recently. It says, "My other car is a surveillance drone." It makes me chuckle. The best part? My insurance rates actually went down. When the fraud was exposed, the claims on my record that Gary had tried to initiate were scrubbed. I went from being a high-risk driver back to a preferred driver. So, in a way, Gary saved me money on car insurance. Just not the way he intended. Final thoughts. I walked the perimeter of my property today. The snow is melting. The grass is coming back. The decorative rocks between the driveways are still there. I kicked one of the rocks. It skittered across the pavement and hit the tire of Mike's minivan. I froze. Old habits die hard. Mike looked up from where he was washing the van. He saw the rock hit the tire. He laughed. "Whoops," he said. "Careful, you might dent the rubber." I laughed too. It felt good. The neighborhood is quiet. The drama is over. The Reddit post is written. I'm going to hit submit on this, and then I'm going to go outside and wash my Civic. It has a lot of salt on it from the winter. It has a few scratches. It has a dent in the bumper. And it is perfect. Because every scratch on that car is real. Every dent has a story I can remember. I did that one on a shopping cart. I did that one backing into a retaining wall. They are my mistakes. My honest, boring mistakes. And I wouldn't trade them for a pristine Jaguar in a million years. Thanks for reading. Stay safe. And watch your neighbors. Addendum, the aftermath. I realized I still have some word count left in me, and there are details I glossed over that paint the full picture of just how deep this rabbit hole went. The weeks following Gary's removal were a period of discovery for the entire street. We found out that Gary had been running a similar scam regarding the HMWay landscaping contracts. He had been hiring a company to trim the trees, a company that was registered to a P.O. box that he owned. The trees never got trimmed, but the checks were cashed. That explained why our dues kept going up while the neighborhood looked like a jungle. We also found his workshop in the garage. When the bank foreclosure team came to clear out the house, I watched from my window. They brought out boxes and boxes of stuff. But then they brought out a workbench. It was rigged with carpet samples. I talked to one of the clean-out guys. He told me there were carpet squares mounted on blocks of wood at different heights. Gary had been testing impact heights. He was simulating door dings. He had a science to it. He would measure the height of a neighbor's door, find the corresponding carpet block, and practice the impact to make sure it looked authentic but didn't actually dent the structural metal too badly, just enough for a cosmetic claim. It was psychotic. The level of dedication he put into being a parasite was almost impressive. If he had applied that energy to a real job, he could have been a CEO. Instead, he was a guy in a garage, hitting carpet blocks with a mallet, plotting against a 32-year-old accountant. I also found out about the witnesses. It wasn't just Linda. Gary had bullied his own son, a college kid named Trent who came home on weekends, into signing affidavits. Trent stopped coming home about a year ago. Now I know why. He refused to be part of the grift anymore. I found Trent on Facebook. I sent him a message. Hey, I'm your parents' neighbor. Just wanted you to know it's over. Your dad is gone. The house is sold. I hope you're doing okay. He replied 3 days later. Thanks, David. I'm sorry for everything. He's a lot. I'm glad you got him. Nobody else could. That message meant more to me than the settlement money. It validated that I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was popping a boil that had been infecting this family for decades. The psychology of the scam. I've spent a lot of time thinking about why. Why me? Why the Civic? I think it was the contrast. The Jaguar versus the Civic. Beauty versus utility. Gary hated my car because it represented everything he wasn't. It was honest. It was unpretentious. It didn't require constant validation. Gary's car was a prop. His life was a prop. His perfect neighbor persona was a prop. When he looked at my car, he saw a target, yes. But I think he also saw an insult. My refusal to worship his car, my casual it gets me from A to B attitude, offended him deeply. He wanted me to fear the Jaguar. He wanted me to revere it. By damaging it and blaming me, he forced me to pay attention to it. He forced me to acknowledge its value, literally, in dollars. It was a power trip. The money was just a scorecard. Living with the trust issues. I won't lie. I am changed. When a package is delivered, I watch the delivery driver on the camera until he leaves. When a contractor comes to fix the HVAC, I shadow him. I record conversations on my phone when I'm negotiating service contracts. It is exhausting. I am trying to unlearn it. I started seeing a therapist. Her name is Dr. Evans. I told her the whole story. She said I have betrayal trauma. It's usually reserved for spouses who get cheated on, but it applies here. My home was supposed to be my sanctuary. My neighbor was supposed to be part of the tribe. Gary violated the social contract of the suburbs. Dr. Evans told me to try a purely trust-based exercise. Leave your garage door open for an hour on a Saturday, she suggested. Just let it be open while you are in the backyard. I tried it last week. I sat in the backyard, heart pounding, listening for sounds of theft. listening for someone sneaking in to steal my tools or sabotage my car. I lasted 20 minutes before I ran around the front to check. The garage was empty. Nothing was stolen. But there was something there. Mike, the new neighbor, had left a returned Tupperware container on my workbench. We had given them some leftover lasagna a few days prior. Inside the container was a note. "Thanks for the food. Mike and Sarah." And a brownie. I ate the brownie standing in the garage, looking at the open door. It was fudgy and sweet. It tasted like progress. The final tally. So let's break down the numbers, because I'm an accountant and that's how I process trauma. Costs. First settlement, $300. Second settlement, lawyer $1,500. Surveillance gear, $850. Lost wages, from stress/taking days off, $1, $200. Therapy, $600, so far. Total cost, $4,450. Recovered. Linda's repayment, $1,800. Insurance consultation fee, $1,000. Total recovered, $2,800. Net loss, $1,650. I paid $1,650 to learn that monsters are real and that I am capable of taking them down. Cheap tuition, all things considered. Some people buy a masterclass. I bought a masterclass in justice. One last detail. I forgot to mention the cat. Gary had a cat. A miserable, mangy thing named Duchess. Duchess would hiss at me from the fence. When Gary was arrested and Linda moved, they left Duchess behind. They literally just left her outside. I found her shivering under my porch 3 days after the house emptied out. She was skinny and matted. I put out a bowl of tuna. She ate it so fast she choked. I took her to the vet. She had fleas, worms, and an infection. I paid for the shots. I paid for the grooming. Duchess lives with me now. She doesn't hiss anymore. She sleeps on the back of my sofa while I play video games. She purrs like a diesel engine. I renamed her Jaguar. Or Jag for short. Every time I look at her, fat and happy, sleeping in the sun, I think, I won. I got the girl, I kept the house, and I beat the bad guy. Gary is in a halfway house. Linda is in Arizona. And Jag is currently kneading my thigh with her claws. It is a good life. If Gary ever reads this, and knowing his ego, he probably Googles himself. I kept the cat, Gary. She likes me better. And she prefers the Honda. The cloth seats are warmer. That is the end of the story. No twists left. Just a man, a cat, and a Honda Civic, living in a quiet cul-de-sac where the only drama is whose turn it is to mow the lawn strip between the driveways. And Mike, if you are reading this, it is your turn. Signed, David.